Rod.
Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting for, what is the date today?
29th?
March 29th.
I wish it was April 29th.
It's good to be in person, I think, for the second time. I think we've done this in quite a while. This evening, we have a few things on the agenda that are going to take a little bit of time. We do have a CPC budget presentation. We will also have our financial director updates, which are pretty substantial this time of year. We have our voting to be had, discussion and voting on our article recommendations in the warrant. So we'll have those, we'll discuss those and hopefully get to vote on each one of the finance articles. We'll have some public input if necessary, member updates, and did I say approve minutes?
You did.
But we will approve minutes. We have some minutes to approve, and then we will adjourn. So without further ado, I will pass things off to you, Alicia. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Honorable Finance Committee. I figured since the CPC is here to do their budget presentation, they could go first.
Absolutely. How are you? See? Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Do we have another one? I think we have another.
we have extras.
Do we have,
That's two, actually.
and to our viewers at home, do they have, does LCTV have a copy of the CPC?
I can forward to them.
That's okay. Usually we have it up so when we're talking about it, they can at least see the.
Yeah, I sent them this update. I'll send them the CBCs too.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Carolyn Mueller from the Community Preservation Committee. I know Alicia's already, I think, spoken to most of this, so just a real quick overview, and then we'll talk about the projects, which I think is really what you guys
Yep.
were looking for.
Fantastic.
So in the short presentation we had, we're just kind of reiterating the savings and spending policy. I know about 10 years ago, a lot of you were around, and CPC buckets were starting to empty out, and that was one of the things that we were really worried about. So, Mitt Wanzers was under his tutelage. We've done really well trying to get a savings and spending plan together, putting a policy to try to build up and sustain balances, trying to earmark, certain buckets of money that come in for certain projects. And that kind of gives us some flexibility to award funds to legitimate projects and kind of things that we've identified or that come to the CPC. So I think, in the past 10 years or so, we've done a really good job at keeping the buckets, as we say, full. I have approximate balances. I know one of the hardest things we ever have is trying to get the balances of the buckets, and I know Alicia's been really helpful. So these may be a little bit outdated. This is the last I had, but we have about $1.7 million in CPC funding right now. Of course, the lion's share of it is in open space, is about $582,000. Historic resources, $220,000. Community housing is about $25,000. Recreation about $615,000, and then about $287,000 sitting in undesignated, and then a small balance in administrative. So we're not like other towns that, bring in $1 million every quarter, but I think, we have some pretty robust funds right now. I think Alicia already has mentioned the allocation. We have the 1% surcharge on the property tax. That's where we get most of our funding from. And we followed this formula the last few years. Again, the lion's share goes to open space just because those projects are always, cost the most amount of money. So we're allocating 40% to open space. And then we usually divide it amongst the other big three, recreation, community housing, and historic resources. And then there's the administrative bucket, which we usually put about 2% in. So that 2% usually comes from one of the other buckets. Historic resources has kind of taken it on the chin the last few go-arounds. So I hope, next next year, maybe they, advocate a little bit to get some of those funds back. It's not a lot, but,
Yeah.
2% adds up when you've done it three years in a row.
So just out of curiosity, Carolyn, how does do these get voted on by your board every year, and the allocation percentage, or is it just part of the standard?
No,
Until you
it's,
vote to change it, it's always
we
gonna
can
be-
vote to change it. By law, you have to vote 10% to open space.
Okay, that's the question.
Historic resources, and community housing. The recreation bucket is new legislation that just came in the last, 4, 5, 6 years. In Littleton, we've decided that's going to be one of the allocated buckets. We just, put that in, but by the legislation of CPA, we don't have to.
Okay.
So you could put 70% into your undesignated fund. In the last few years, we haven't allocated anything specifically to undesignated, trying to keep getting some of these buckets some revenue. But this is, I think, 3 or 4 years, this is kind of what the tact we've taken.
Great.
And then in the fall, we'll vote on the state match. I mean, last year was, 32%? We got a great state match last year. And we typically follow the same formula when we divide that up. Now, if there's something waiting in the wings that, one of the buckets might need, we hope that those people would advocate for a bigger percentage. But, I mean, typically, we've tried to be pretty
Yeah, I think that was a
even.
discussion this year with the tennis court potentially situation. Is that?
Yes.
The part of
Yeah,
recreation
so,
thing.
a lot of times we, some, and that's, fairly small project. I mean, when
Yeah.
you're talking, it's, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or like open space could be millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You might need to pad those buckets a little bit higher. But open space is a hard one too, because it typically comes up, right away. It's not like you have 3 years to plan for it. So getting into the spending this year, we have, as always, we have some debt service payments that we have to take care of first. There are 3 for open space. These are going down, and it's nice. I mean, it took a big leap. I'm not quite sure how it works, to be honest, over how many years and the percentage of how it goes down. But this year at YAP, debt service is $5,500. The Cobb property is $20,325, and the Williams property is $36,900. And I've also put what I have is the final payment, so we still have a ways to go for those. And then the historic resources is the Houghton building roof, which we're still paying on. That was a 20-year bond, I do know that. So that's fiscal year '29. So we're going to carry the debt service for a little while longer, but it does decrease every year, which is kind of nice. So then this year we have 3 projects that we've recommended to town meeting. The first is the open space and recreation plan, which the planning board brought to us. And that's a $30,000 project. And I kind of gave a little summary from the application. So the planning board brought this to us because to have an approved open space and recreation plan in support of the process and funding, such as public and private grants for the acquisition, creation, and preservation of open space, and the acquisition, creation, and preservation of land for recreational use, and having the open space plan qualifies the town to receive certain grant funds. And we see that, with the Brown property on Tehadawin Road, I mean, that was, CPC only had to fund, a small portion of that because of the grants they received. So the open space plan is getting older, so they want to update it. So this is really more of an update to the current plan. We're taking this from undesignated funds because there's a little bit of discussion we have between open space and recreation. So the planning board originally wanted this to be kind of a half and half project because it kind of bridges the open space and then the recreation piece. Recreation is very protective of their funding bucket, but we do have, $250,000 in undesignated, and we thought because this kind of bridged the two, that we would use those funds. We did that for one of the trail projects last year as well. But that's something going forward that we're going to have to talk about is, recreation projects like trail improvements. Open space people, it's usually the Conservation Trust that bring it to us, or Conservation Commission. So you kind of equate that with open space, yet it's a recreation trail.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a give and take, and I think that's something we'll have to, in the quiet months of the summer, put on our agenda to figure out a good balance. But that's why that's coming from undesignated. The second project is from Historic Resources Reserve, and that's $9,950 for another round of gravestone preservation, this at West Lawn Cemetery. This funding is to be used to hire and pay for professional preservation consultants to perform, this is the second phase of gravestone rehabilitation and conservation work in the historic section of West Lawn Cemetery. And this phase follows the one they finished last year, where they did an inventory and conditions assessment. They did an amazing work. We have a firm that we like to work with, Fannin and Lerner, and they went through the entire first section. I think it was close to 300 gravestones, and did a complete preservation assessment. So we have that document now that we can go, and whether we use them or we use volunteers or whatever, that's going to take us out a few years to get that.
Does this also the monuments fall into this when we?
Yeah, we call them monuments because sometimes it may not be a gravestone. It might be like we did the Liberty Square monuments a few years ago.
Yeah, that looks great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean those were great. There's a monument in front of Mr. Champney's house that will need protection at some point. So it makes it a little more broad so that we can take care of those as well. But they do amazing work, and this is a joint project with the Cemetery Commission and the Historic Commission. So that will get done this year too, hopefully. And then the third one, which you alluded to earlier, is from Recreation Reserve, and that's from the town, the tennis and pickleball court feasibility study, and that would be $20,000. And this is to undertake the feasibility study for new tennis and pickleball courts, which will replace the existing courts on Shattuck Street. The town is, of course, proposing to build a senior center on the site of those courts, but as we found out with the library, the school really needs their tennis courts, so we need to find another spot in town for those to be. We kind of broke out, the initial project was for the feasibility study and engineering, but we kind of asked the town to break that up, and so we wanted to, when they come back for engineering, we wanted to know what the site was. Because, it's one thing if they find an open space, but if they want to, tear something down to build a court, we wanted to know that ahead of time, so we didn't want to kind of lump those together. And Joe Layden said, by fall, it would be, they'll probably come back in the fall for that part of the project. So those are the three projects that came before us to be recommended, and we agreed and voted on those to go forward. And then on the last page, I just kind of gave you some of the projects that we've talked about. We kind of keep it on our agenda to have any projects that, might be out there, so we're not surprised by anything large. Open space, like I say, that usually comes as a surprise at the end anyways, because it's often a quick turnaround. Historic resources, the Houghton building, we may need some window restoration done for that. And then 12 Robinson Road, the RFP is imminent, I think. So when the sale for that, whatever we get, whether it's $1 or $200,000, will go back into the CPA historic resources bucket. So that's kind of a reverse project.
Yeah.
Community housing, they didn't get the Affordable Housing Trust Fund typically puts in an application to sweep the funds out of the housing, and we didn't get that through for the spring, so I'm sure in the fall they're going to want to take that balance out. And typically, that's what they've been doing, working with the Housing Authority in case they need some funds, but they've still got some for emergency repairs from prior years. And recreation, of course, is the, you know, the hot topic these days. There'll be construction of the courts. I know Conservation Commission has some additional trail improvements, although they're going for some grants, so they're kind of doing some self-funding too, to help out. And then, you know, the new playing fields has always been at the top of the list. There's talk about a dog park and then some improvements to Fay Park. So those, there's nothing concrete, but those are some things we'll have to kind of keep an eye on.
All right. Well, any questions or comments on the projects or anything? No, easy crowd here for you.
Yeah, I know.
No, thank you, and we'll try to get on your, probably get with you earlier in the year, probably, but this isn't bad, we're still before
Yeah.
town meeting, so it is good, we gotta just make sure we get you on the calendar every year.
Right.
Yeah,
I
even if
mean-
it's twice a year, if we've got a lot going on, just kinda good to know.
Yeah, I mean, we usually start ramping up in the fall, you know,
Yeah.
the summer is really pretty quiet after town meeting, but then there's always the fall town meeting, people bring, I think we'll have a few projects in the fall this time, and then, you know.
And when does
start-
the matching discussion come out on?
We usually get the match around November.
Yeah, it's
So-
in the fall.
Yeah, so we would probably, for fall town meeting, we'd want to, you know, see what the percentage might be, and then, you know, see what's on the radar, and if we need to, you know, allocate differently than we have. So probably, you know, August, September, we'll probably start talking about that.
All right, great,
All right.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on. I think now we can get to you.
I have a couple of things for Alicia for this.
Yes.
How much money is in the housing trust fund? Do you know offhand?
I don't know offhand. I can check for you and get back to you please, on that one.
And you mentioned that the sale of Robinson Road going back into this fund. What's different between that and what we talked about today? About the sale of that property?
I was just thinking that too, yeah. For the difference between, so the eminent domain taking
Yep.
and selling.
One that's
the-
definitely defined as a historic building and property, for sure.
Wasn't CPC funds used, though, for
Yeah.
12 Robinson?
That's why.
There you
Yeah.
go. You're right, they
Yeah.
were. That's right.
So they're just depositing what, it's like a loan, like the
Well,
bank.
There's this, a Mass General law that just came across.
Yeah. We probably need to check on that further, on that
Yeah.
before, because that's exactly.
So
the
that-
same-
that-
Yeah.
So you know what we're talking about, so the sale of
Yeah.
that house lot over there. I was talking with Alicia and Sean today and saying, should we put something in the article that says that those funds, the proceeds from the sale should go back to capital stabilization or the senior center stabilization? And Alicia has Mass General law that says it can't, it has to go back and be appropriated to a debt service, even though we didn't borrow to purchase the property. So I'm just asking, what's the difference between this, the sale of property, that's not tax levy?
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things you said today.
Yeah, right now, as you're bringing it to my attention, I would think it would have to be the exact same thing, receipts reserved for appropriation under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64.
Okay.
But I will double check that, but I think you're correct.
So if I'm understanding that right, you couldn't take the funds from the sale of 12 Robinson Road and put them back into CPC, or you could?
You'd have to appropriate it from town
Go to
mean?
town
No,
meeting.
it'd have to go into debt
Raise
Does
service.
it have to go into debt
It
Debt
service?
has to go
service.
pay debt service.
Even though CPC funds were used
To
to
purchase it.
purchase it?
That I'm going to double check.
Okay.
But that's the question at hand, right?
Yeah.
So, and this one doesn't even involve CPC, so
Right.
it's a little more a simple following of the law. Interesting question, but
It's just screwy law. I've never heard of that. And it doesn't make sense to me that why we couldn't
allocate it where we want
allocate
it.
the proceeds from that sale to where we want, but
Right.
Yeah.
even though we didn't borrow we're not gonna borrow to purchase that. We still have to put it to debt service, which
They have
Doesn't
no-
make
Could you
sense.
put it towards CPC debt service?
Yeah, one of their debt service, that's an
And they
interest.
have debt service, so couldn't you do that?
You could?
Yeah.
That might be an option.
I think
More to come on that, I think we can do a little research.
yeah,
I just want to know if we're going to make money on that sale.
No.
We're losing a lot, aren't we,
Which one?
on the sale of Robinson Road?
Oh, you never know, right? I mean, if someone's gonna restore it and work with the town to do something, who knows? Might be a much more favorable sale than, just depends.
it's being sold with a deed restriction on it.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, that's basically what we purchased. I think really was the protection of the property.
So it's gonna take a
At least you're gonna
special
get-
group
you're
to
gonna get
actually,
Something back out of it, though, that's kind of a good way to do that.
yeah. Be nice to have a little theater there, a coffee. All right, let's get on to your updates.
Thanks,
Alicia.
Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay,
So we're gonna go over a quick budget briefing and the ARPA plan,
yep.
then annual town meeting articles. I provided the report just for context to go with what I pasted in the PowerPoint.
Okay,
A reserve fund transfer request for the maintenance department that the select board voted to recommend last night. And the select board also voted on a spending freeze to be implemented on April 1st.
okay, so the reserve fund transfer, unfortunately, probably gonna have to kick that to next week. 'Cause that wasn't on the agenda. That was,
That's right.
it came up in the last,
But if we're in a spending freeze beginning next April 1st, can we still vote it? Because it's passed, or even though it's already approved by the select board.
Yeah,
it's recommended by the select board.
Or recommended
But yeah,
by
so
the
we'll,
select
we'll
board.
probably have to do, if we don't have anything else for the agenda, we'll probably Zoom that meeting just so we can vote on the reserve fund transfer. But we're gonna see it tonight, so we can at least know what we're talking.
yes, I'm gonna go
Okay.
over that.
Makes sense.
So here's the budget summary showing we have a balanced budget.
It's always good.
That's a good day.
I know it's a tricky year. Every year's a tricky year. Any questions on that slide? Just, I know it's a lot to look at.
Kind of gone through a lot of it already.
Yes, we have.
So,
If anything jumps out at you, just ask questions, please.
Any changes since budget meeting?
No, nothing, nothing other than funding the FTEs and doing the capital allocations, so. that was-
And the one
Those are
small
materials.
thing I did was I took out of the transfer station,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I made a new little division, but we just put it under DPW, I know it's not showing up here, for the, I'm trying to think what it's called, landfill closure monitoring. So that landfill closure monitoring is in its own separate division, just for transparency purposes.
that's a good idea.
So it's not a change in the numbers, it's just a transparency.
Just a breakout.
All right.
So it has been recommended that the town develop an ARPA spending plan as funds must be obligated by December 2024 and fully expended by December 2026. So far, one police officer was authorized in January of '22 to end June 30th, '22, and will be a part of the budget. And an electronic message board has been charged to ARPA since it was denied by the CARES Fund. Most of the budget increases are due to additional staffing requests for full-time employees, along with capital requests. The town budget's increased by 8.85%, or $1,161,127. The school department budget increased by 2.04%, or $460,247. In addition, the school capital requests of $700,000 for the Shaker Lane feasibility study and $60,000 to update their high school security alarm controls for a grand total of $1,222,447 for fiscal year '23.
We talked a little bit about that, I know today, but just, that's one of the largest numbers I know this town's probably ever seen for a feasibility study. Is that accurate? So I think, we probably want to just reach out to the schools and just I'm curious, because that number typically equates to the cost of a project that could be
10%.
pending. Well,
Well,
it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out 10% of,
That's,
you know, you're looking at a $50 to $70 million project, and that just doesn't seem right. So I'm just curious on why
I don't
that
think
number.
that's that far off based on all the cost of everything
that'd be-
today. Think about, it
Yeah,
depends on
no,
what they're gonna end up doing.
you're right, but I just, yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be. a
Just
pretty
seemed,
big-
it was shocking to see the number that come in that high. I mean, we really were looking for a half
Look-
that.
Look at how small the library is, and that's a $14 million project.
Yeah.
And that's, you know,
Yeah.
pricing really before COVID.
Yeah.
With everything that's gone up, that wouldn't, to add like a wing on Shaker Lane, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
We'll see. But more to come. I'm just curious what the schools have to say. I didn't really dig into that question. We haven't really discussed with them since, but,
What's amazing is these two numbers, the town budget and the school budget increases are pretty close. Not too far off, are they? 1.1 versus the 1.2.
yeah, if you look
Not
at
too
that.
far off.
Okay.
So this slide is just showing the 7.8 staffing requests that were approved on March 8th, and that there were additional requests that can be
Yeah.
discussed further in the future.
And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about the, and I know it's a select board, they're really the ones that have to decide what they want to put forward, but as far as funding the facilities, we had an incident even here today with a broke pipe, I believe, correct? The cracked
Yep.
pipe. So these are things that, yeah, you know, I was thinking about it and why that position keeps getting kicked and punted down the road. It's because no one's fighting for it. And not that we should be fighting for it. I mean, it's a finance department, but I was just thinking, it doesn't belong to anyone. And until somebody owns it, like a firefighter, they'll fight for their fire department but there's no one's going to come up and fight for that position, so it just keeps getting kicked because there's more important needs. So I think we probably need to get the schools involved to get them on board, at least the finance side of it, and that way we at least have a plan. Hey, schools are going to fund 50% of this, and we can move forward. So it's the only way I think it's going to happen. But anyway, that's just me thinking about it.
I agree with you.
And on that note, I mean, that's part of the, budget and part of the, the reserve in the budget is, for some of those positions that maybe need to be revisited, that might be an option at special town meeting,
Yeah,
depending on how things shake out, so.
yep, sure.
And we'll also know how we close out 22 at that point, so we can kind of make an informed decision there.
There's a little extra money left over that you can find somewhere.
Hopefully.
Yeah, these were all discussed already, so let's keep them.
So the next slide is the cash capital request, so it's showing what was approved, $2,557,295, replacement cost of $1.1 million, new cost of 1.4, subtotal of capital $2,557,295. Take out of that the $700,000 that's going to the school capital article for the feasibility study, $600,000 from the capital stabilization for the communication system for the police, brings it to $1,257,295. And at the bottom of the slide, I wanted to show the senior center stabilization, what's in it, what's being added to it, because the senior center article is pretty large and has a
Yeah.
lot of figures in it that we'll be going over.
You know, that's important. That number is going to become very important as we go forward, looking at the project. If the town does vote, we'll get to that with the warrants, but I think over the next couple years, building that can't build it up enough.
Right.
If we're going to talk that project, just knowing the skyrocketing costs, so. All right, thank you.
Next is the proposed ARPA plan that I presented to the select board last night, using $2 million for the sewer, $1 million for the senior center, $21,950 for that signage trailer board that was rejected by CARES, $29,000 for the officer for 6 months, and just an other government service earmark, $5,970 as a contingency. The select board wanted more input, so they want input from department heads and boards. and also your body and what you think of the proposal.
On the disbursement plan?
Yeah, on the ARPA plan, or if you have any other ways that you would want to spend it. So I've asked people to just email me directly, and I will gather a list together and
Interesting.
give it to the town administrator.
Is the $1 million that you have listed here included in this 5 million number, or that would be in addition?
That would be an addition.
Okay. So when does this due? The ARPA, you said not till next year, but you're trying to get ahead of it.
I'm trying to get ahead of it, yeah,
done.
because you have to have funds so encumbered, obligated by December 2024, so at least
Yeah.
if we have a plan, we can start working towards that.
Okay.
But our first reporting period is the end of April, too. So,
Okay.
all we have charged to it currently is
It was too
somewhere
small.
10 to 20 grand for one of the officers, so.
And the trailer board.
Is the $2 million number in the plan, is that, that's the same number we've been talking about all along for the sewers, right? I just,
Yes, that was the one we brought up during special town meeting.
Yeah,
We
okay,
could
yeah.
possibly put 2 million towards the sewer project, yep.
So funds have to be expended by 12/31/26 or appropriated?
Appropriated, oh, so no, 12/31/26 is the end of the spending. Appropriated is 12/31/24.
Okay.
Shouldn't have a problem, right?
20, we're in 22 in 4 years.
Yeah.
That's almost all going towards the sewer and the senior center.
Spend it first.
Right.
I mean, that's, okay.
Might as well use it, I guess. It's good. If we, drive down some of the costs there.
Now we get into the budget articles. So Article 3 is bills of prior year. Right now, we don't have any prior year bills, so no action is requested for this.
So you're showing us the PowerPoint,
Yep, I pasted in all the actual
and we're going to
articles.
follow along with this, or not?
And if you want to, that gives you more background.
Yeah, okay.
So I wanted you to have that just in case,
Okay,
versus just the article with no explanation.
right, okay, got it. Thank you. So this will be probably removed on town floor if there are no, but there should be.
I'm not,
I know you cleaned them up last year.
I did. A lot of people have been putting in POs and have been following that.
Okay.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't.
We got so used to just having them. So, thank you.
Article 4 is the operating budget. Vote to raise and appropriate $54,483,471 and transfer from certified free cash $855,652 for a total of $55,339,123.
Okay. I think we might want to vote along as we do these, make it a little easier.
I think you're right,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
So let's look at, everybody look at this article. So this is our budget. Everybody's, this is one of those ones that typically doesn't get discussed much at town meeting. It just passes through, but this is our budget, so it means probably.
It gets a lot of holds. There's always a lot of discussion.
Well, on each item, for sure, but I'm saying overall, what
Overall.
we're just saying, this is our raise and appropriate. Any discussion? If not, we can get right into the motion and,
I'm just gonna skim through these numbers again. It's easier to see on paper versus on screen.
So again, there's no changes except for that little extra budget for DPW, right?
I did there should be, you'll see an asterisk by the DPW.
It's just a breakout.
there's a lot in there. I mean, we're probably the ones that dig the most in this when we're looking at it, but it will get held on probably some of the newer. Typically, we'll have to speak to it, but nothing that we didn't discuss that's popped in here since our last meeting. So,
And again, we're just voting salaries and expenses by division or whatever that breakup is. We have the line, voting lines.
Yes,
Yep.
Can you just say what the asterisk was for again?
I broke out the landfill post-closure monitoring
Oh, right, okay.
out of the transfer station.
Was that 130,000?
right?
Roughly, I believe.
Okay.
And everything follows our policy on transferring out to the different,
Yes. You want me to say that,
Mo-
so voted general,
yeah.
okay. So voted total general government is 3,718,362, 2,184,946 for salaries and wages, 1,533,416 for expenses.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend Article 4.
I'll second.
been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, further discussion on this? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, on to Article 5.
Article 5 is the departmental revolving funds. I couldn't fit it all on one slide, so I put it on two.
Okay. All right. All right, so this one I'm a little more familiar with than most in the room, I think, because
So we're gonna rescind the Spectacle Pond cell tower because the Department of Revenue has specified that any of these cell tower agreement funds are not legal because they don't fall under any Mass General Law finance statute. Therefore, they want them closed out, and I'm still working with the town administrator, town council, and light, electric, and water because it affects light, electric, water, it affects CPC, it affects Conservation Commission. So we're trying to figure out a way, and I've been providing DOR with lots of documentation, so their lawyers are looking at it, to figure out what gets closed to enterprise versus what gets closed to the general fund, and then what's the solution. So one solution is if it's closed to the general fund, then at Springtown meeting, we could appropriate what we closed into a stabilization fund, and then they would just come forward and ask to get the funds appropriated for what they need.
so, which is very different than how this was done before. There was no, it didn't get put into a stabilization, and it was just automatically.
Automatically went to CPC, didn't it?
Was it all CPC?
think
It
so,
was, yes. So definitely a different way of doing business. We're not the only town, I think I have to talk to you, that got,
No, it's, they're looking at every city in town. It's a
Yes.
big initiative by the Department of Revenue. They've identified a lot of cities and towns doing it, and they've made a point that if we don't close them, they won't set our tax rate in December.
well, there you go.
So if we're
It's the
closing
motivation.
up, we're closing out the revolving
Stick.
funds.
Just the Spectacle Pond, because it's a cell tower. So there's other ones that are,
Well, Cedar Hills, a
Cedar-
cell tower.
Yep.
There's a bunch of them.
right, Oak Hill.
Right. So why is Spec Pond different than those?
That's the one they selected on here that was in their bylaws. I don't, some of the stuff is so old. Some of the stuff they pulled is from 1971 and 1981, and I've forwarded it to DOR. So the Littleton Electric Light and Water is giving me lots of documentation that I can gather, but that's what they had.
Push the other cell phone tower funds to Spec Pond Tower, and then it all pushes through.
No,
No.
it's all separate
Yeah,
funds
separate.
because there's different allocations. for
Yeah, it's
each of
just,
those
it's just
buckets.
curious why the one tower, is it because of the location on the spec
I'm
pond?
my assumption is that this one made it into your bylaws and those others must not
Not.
be. And that's why they're not
Okay,
included.
so they're just not a voted revolving fund,
You've
even
got
though
it.
they are revolving
You've
funds?
got it,
But you're gonna have to change them anyways.
correct.
But not through town, we have to do that through vote, do we? Town meeting, or not?
You're still gonna
Well,
have to
DOR
close
starts-
out the
Yeah, I
Cedar
mean, no
Hill
matter what,
cell
no matter
tower.
how it's voted, the Department of Revenue is saying I have to close it, I don't have a choice.
So if you're closing those accounts out, forget about the article here. If you're closing the accounts out, we have some debt service payments that are coming out of those funds for this budget that we're talking about.
It closes in '24, like for the last offset on that.
The last offset for the debt service is 24. How do we fund I think it's like 50,000 this year, 56,000 from what I saw? Plus there's another 25 next year or something. So how do we get those monies?
We didn't put that, and I believe we did not put those as transfers in this budget, for that very reason, because I have to close them out.
So we gotta pay
So we constructed the budget without using those funds.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
Big
have,
sheet has it in there.
I
took it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
so we're gonna have to see another, article, probably in special or the following year, are we not?
Well, there's going to have to be some way to allocate those dollars out, because town meeting, back when those cell tower leases were first done, back in the late 90s or so, voted to send so much to conservation purposes and so much to the water enterprise fund. So there needs to be some way, and I know Anthony's working on it, but there needs to be some way to keep that allocation going.
Well, there is. We have our plan. Our plan is, once we close it out, to open, go back.
Stabilization.
Yeah, do a stabilization. The issue is, the water commissioners are saying some of them belong to them. If it does, I can't close it to the general fund. I close it then to their enterprise fund.
In which
Now-
way, there's no way to get that money back to us.
Now, they would have to do an MOU or an MOA to do that, so
I
it'd be a
know
little different.
Anthony's working on that.
Yeah, we're all working together on that.
So this, article,
So this is just for the Spec Pond Tower.
No, this rescinds the spec pond tower and establishes, for Alicia's Park and Rec Department, a new Park and Rec revolving fund.
Okay.
Yep.
Cleans that up, too.
taking them on enterprise and everything, so. Yeah,
Let's keep taking money out of one pocket, put it in the other place.
yeah.
This
is actually-
We're playing a shell game here.
So we haven't, this is the first time people seeing this article. So it was introduced within the last week or two, right? Really, this, I don't think we saw this before. We've never seen this article, so it's,
No, it's new. My question is, and it's just because it's staring at me, is LCTV Boxborough IMA. What is that? Yeah.
Intermunicipal agreement.
And so we gotta pay them?
No.
They pay us.
They pay us, and we can expend up to 90,000.
Got it. Okay. That's income.
LCTV does some programming for them.
Right, and I knew they did that, but I was just thinking if we paid them
That was a good
versus
question.
us
Sometimes we forget.
receiving money.
Yes.
all right, so this article officially, does it, this one officially takes Park and Rec out of the enterprise.
Well, kind of, sort of. You're gonna see that we're still, the state allowed them to still spend down what they have left in their enterprise, but they had to open the revolving.
Okay,
So you'll see that.
It's really this, they're doing the same thing, it's just got a different name, right? In a sense.
Yeah, and I told them the
Yeah.
benefit is they don't have to wait for retained earnings to get certified. Their balance just rolls.
I guess once this happens, we're definitely gonna wanna see more of them, probably.
I was gonna say, where's the oversight there?
Yeah, well, you're gonna see it too, but I just think that's something that we never really had access to see or visually to talk, because it was fully enterprise. So now I think, are we drawing them down appropriately? Are we,
Yeah, well, we
do we have a
put-
closeout?
Anybody that's non-program based, it means they're not generating revenue for program,
Yeah.
which was like the director, assistant directors now in the general fund.
Yep,
Instead of asking us for subsidy on their enterprise fund like they were, which is what the external audit also recommended. And then we're opening the revolving fund, which they recommended, while they're also able to spend down what they have, so they're not losing it. I asked if I could just transfer into the revolving, because it's program income.
Right.
yeah,
The state was adamant and said, nope, but we'll allow you to let them spend it down.
okay. And the commissioners are all,
Yep, I did a presentation for them.
okay.
They should have that all spent down by the summer anyway, right? Or no?
I'm not sure.
Well, I think the key too is to have it so that they can, bridge on. So let's say they end the year with a fund balance of 300,000. That'll get them started through the summer where they'll bring in money from programs into the revolving fund. So as the enterprise balance draws down, they can still run their operation, because in order to spend in a revolving fund, you won't need the money in. You can't front. So that's where it actually is a good kind of way of smoothing moving on to the
Because
new
their
fund.
expenses go in the summer.
Well, their way of business, it's definitely gonna be a little learning curve, so we're probably gonna see some interesting requests throughout at least the first year. I would guess, unless they really nail it. I mean,
I'm hoping they really nail it, but we will see.
yeah, okay.
I mean, a lot of the things, I mean, operationally, is going to function the same. And anytime we talk with Tim and Alicia,
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
And then let the MGLs and the accounting take care of itself, because everything else is gonna be running out.
As long as they're watching the profitability of their programs, they should have no problem.
Good point.
Exactly.
The sealer of weights and measures, is that a service through Neshoba that we get, or is this? That's not going away, right?
No. So all I did with this was I looked at the caps.
No, I'm not talking about the,
I know, you're talking about what it actually is. I'd have to
Yeah.
look. Yeah.
Next
I
time
never
you're-
knew where we-
Next time you're at the gas pump, look at who signs that thing.
Look at this thing.
yeah, well, he
Yeah, I mean, it's
comes,
$20,000. Yeah, that
usually
is that,
comes
right?
in once a month, or once a
Yeah.
quarter, whatever it is. He comes in,
this?
drops his checks off, and
Seal it.
I always thought it was through Neshoba.
Oh, yeah, well, it's through, actually.
It's not a Board of Health.
It's, God, what is it? Is it Northern Middlesex something?
Oh, so it's totally separate.
Does that ring a bell?
No.
Somebody gave me a check.
It's okay. I think,
I never really paid attention where he was from.
But he sends the letter with like the money, and then there's the, yep, okay, all right. So I just need to find out what that,
I think next year we should put the department in here that's responsible, person responsible, just like it says in the bylaw. instead
well,
of
it's
this
me and I
letter.
forgot, so, all right.
Yeah, just for,
Let me double check.
That's a
that way
good
the
idea.
questions are answered. 'Cause-
I just don't want the service to go away for leaving Neshoba all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, if it is Neshoba.
If it is
Hopefully it
Neshoba.
isn't.
Okay, 'cause I don't know.
I do know.
I just
I
remember
kinda-
seeing a name on the seal. So I
Yeah, I mean,
never
there's-
seen like
I
the
know.
Shoba Board of Health or anything.
I try to avoid gas
it's
pumps.
whatever
so-
guy actually goes out and
Like someone
seals
looked.
it. Yeah.
All right, so LCD, all right, any questions left on this? You guys have any comments? Or It's kind of,
I think
it's a big deal. I mean, this has been talked about for a few years now, the Park and Rec piece.
Oh, yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I mean,
The cell tower, not so much. We thought we were just kind of cruising along. But that's more of a concern with the water department and LC.
see how that plays out. But Park and Rec, it's just more of an accounting game. It's
Yeah,
not gonna impact services. It's just doing it a little bit
No,
different.
it should be transparent, definitely to the public,
Should
for
be.
sure. It's just-
But to your point, they should probably come in a little
Yeah.
more often to give us a review of what's going on.
Yeah, the first year, for sure, and whether it's quarterly or definitely, probably
What's going
quarterly,
on with
just because I don't know how they're, just to make sure that they're on. things.
Yeah, and I just remember from being on that committee, on the Park and Rec there years ago, their spend goes up really big in the summer because of all
Oh,
the
yeah.
summer programs.
All the camps,
PMT
yeah,
and
yeah.
Lake and all that stuff, it's spending a lot of money in the summertime.
Right.
And to Alicia's point, we probably should add that department, like you suggested, that's a good idea on the side here, so we know which department these things all fall under.
Well, if this is on the warrant like that, that wouldn't surprise me to have, there's a few people I can think of that might come up and say,
But what department is this? Who's
who's
responsible for
weights and
that?
measures, but
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
probably
gonna-
a good idea to do that.
it's the select board's decision on that. We're just kind of,
That just helps
the
clean,
finance
it
part.
just helps clean it
It's the
up.
Northern Middlesex Council on
Good
Governments.
idea. They're looking for feedback.
yeah, there's one. All right,
I'll move, we recommend Article 5.
Second.
all right, Article 5's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous.
Hey, Steve, I found on the sealer, it's Northern Middlesex County on Governments. So they provide us that.
What is it?
Northern Middlesex County on Governments.
So you were right about the Northern Middlesex.
Yeah, but I was thinking the Registry of Deeds too, and just kind of got it crossed up, so.
So Steve's gonna sleep better tonight.
That's right.
I was gonna sleep, I had
The
to
gas
look
pumps
that
are accurate again.
up. I wish they were a little less, but.
He's worried about the show, but not showing up. That scares him off. Oh, boy.
All right, Article 6.
Article 6 is the water enterprise budget. It's $4,893,315, $4,815,015 for user charges, $78,300 from other departmental revenue. And then they want to spend $1,220,000 on salaries and wages, $1,631,445 on expenses, $50,000 on capital outlay for equipment, $631,870 for capital outlay for improvements, $200,000 for reserve fund, and $1,160,000 for debt principal and interest.
It's a healthy salary and wage department. Okay, I don't see anything significant.
The only thing I see here is the user charges went up quite a bit.
Don't get us going on that.
The user charges goes up, and they're not using any of their reserves in this budget. They're good with that?
The healthy reserve
What is their reserves?
was, we were briefed on
Do we
it
know?
before. You have it.
I would have to look.
I
Okay,
remember,
all right.
I remember seeing it and I was.
They're not using any of it, so.
To the retained earnings? or-
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know, that's a different rabbit hole that I wouldn't mind going down in discussion with, when talking about especially with the municipal buildings, that the increase that we weren't,
That we didn't know about?
yeah, we didn't know about it, we weren't prepared for it, it jumped our budget, so now Fincom, that's what, we're gonna see the reserve fund transfer, try to offset some of these costs related to energy, with the library, the new library, and things that weren't.
Yeah,
A little
it's
bit
a
predicted.
pretty substantial increase in the.
It is, but we'll talk about that when we get to it, but that, yeah, for sure,
That's probably the only thing that scared, if it went from like, 4,044,000 to 44.1 million, I'm like, well, it went to 4.8, it's a
yeah.
good chunk. It's a good chunk of money that.
I know that a few
Charges.
years back, they started to build in their rate system, some payback for the debt service that. they're doing.
Correct.
And they got a lot of debt out there now.
They do, yeah. Well, they've been doing a lot of
Yeah.
improvements and such. so.
Some down the road, yeah.
Only to go higher.
Yeah, probably 24, 25.
So their retained earnings that were certified was $1,405,090.
Not that that would account for all the user charges, but I know they were saying something about Pepsi, the Pepsi building going to be needing a lot more water usage, yeah. It was significant, they were,
Well, maybe they're selling
Pleased
more
with that.
water. Yeah. They're not pleased, or they were?
no, they were. It
Oh,
was,
yeah,
it
'cause it's
was,
making more
it was
money.
good for them,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
as long as the residents aren't paying that, that's
Right.
probably.
yeah, I
Well, I
mean, I
know-
can't say that's what it all is, but I know that was significant to them.
Well, I know Pepsi, during COVID, they were shut down one of their lines, so I don't know if you were toward that facility, the assembly line, it's like watching Laverne and Shirley, they started, but
You're dating
too young,
yourself,
Sean,
Gary.
hurry.
Sean's like, who's that?
But I think one of their entire assembly lines, whatever you want to call it, bottling lines, it wasn't operable during COVID. I don't think they had the personnel or for another reason. So now if that's up, that's where this water. So they're going to be in there. It's definitely when they turn on their faucet, it's like, I don't even want to guess how many households that would equate to.
They probably spill more than I use.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt about that. Okay, so Article 6.
I make a motion to recommend approval of Article 6.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. All right.
Article 7 is the sewer enterprise operating budget. User charges of $361,861, salaries of $91,300, expenses of $105,561, and debt principal and interest of $165,000 for a total of $361,861.
So they're gonna have this online in this next coming fiscal year to get those user charges?
No, that's us.
That's us.
This is for the system at the high school.
Yes,
Oh,
our
oh,
current
yeah,
system,
yeah,
and then the
yeah,
one
okay.
we,
All right, that makes
so
sense.
they've now fully assigned over a person, obviously that salary,
Yeah, that
before
makes
was just
sense.
half a person, now it's a full person.
Yeah.
And they're building a surplus in this account also?
I would hope so, but I don't know.
That's another good
Or at least
question.
80, because they budgeted 80 last year.
It's another good question to ask when we meet with them, though, for sure.
They got some debt in there, too, that they're accounting for.
The debt's for the land purchase, right?
Yep, and there's bans on the design piece as well, so.
Do we, can the town, once the, I think I asked this before, once the town moves forward with the sewer system, can the town recoup the cost that we've paid for that debt service? Or not?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I've never seen that.
The ratepayers.
Is that a can or will?
Can we?
When you say can we, does that mean,
I believe,
I don't know.
I
whether
I
we
believe we
can or
may
not.
be able to do something, but I'll follow up. I do remember Steve asking that question, and I believe the consultant said there is a way, but I'll follow up on that one.
Okay.
Fox on that?
Mhm.
Oh,
we don't want you to have to ask all these questions at our meeting with them. They'll say, who is this?
Get her out of here.
Okay, any further discussion on Article 7? Look for a motion.
Will we recommend Article 7?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, unanimous. We like unanimous. Isn't always the case, but we,
The next Article 8 is the Parks and Rec Enterprise Fund.
here we go. Yep.
And so we're estimating their fund balance of 263,091, with 82,000 being wages and 181,091 being expenses.
Yeah, we kind of already discussed this, so I'll make a motion to approve, to recommend that article.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that one? All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Hey,
Did you say aye?
I did.
Okay. It's unanimous.
Budget Article number 9,
9 is the
capital items.
capital items, available funds, okay?
So we're appropriating $557,295 from certified free cash to replace a 2011 Chevy, 1993 Mack dump truck, a utility truck for the fire department, Paint Medical One, to replace some cruisers as part of their capital plan, to replace a passenger van for Parks and Rec, and to do the high school updates for $60,000. And below that, it says appropriate $600,000 or any other sum of money from the capital stabilization fund for the purpose of implementing that communication center for the police.
Okay. These, we've kind of obviously beat these to death on our meeting.
Yeah.
I know the chief's here. I'm going to bring up questions on this paint job on that vehicle because you didn't talk about it as much. I'm just, no.
If I can, though, Mr. Chairman, I just learned this afternoon from Kim and Tom, they forgot to share with me for the last meeting. $20,000 paint job
Yep.
is required, or OEMS is not gonna certify in their inspection this summer of the vehicle. And as I shared with you, we're trying to extend the life of that.
Yeah.
But I did not know that when we met the last time, but the paint job is necessary or we're gonna lose, so the vehicle won't get certified.
There you go.
I mentioned that.
That's a good
That's a
reason.
$20,000 certification, not a paint job.
It almost would fall in the
Spending
reserve
different
fund
way.
transfer if we weren't in a budget cycle, so. just because that's that
Yeah.
important. so.
The certification requirements are just getting so difficult. You know, they don't miss a trick.
Just out of-
Rust or something.
New ambulance, and is it
The
delivery
new
date?
ambulance, the new
we have one.
ambulance, excuse me, the second ambulance that's in service has been stripped. It's been taken down to Plainville, Mass. The new ambulance, as I shared with you, is in. The radios are being transferred. We expect to receive the ambulance either Friday or Monday. It'll
Wow.
take approximately a week to get it restocked and trained.
Yeah.
And I expect a week from Friday, no later than a week from Monday, that new ambulance will be in service.
Wow,
The
fantastic.
deputy and the ALS coordinator have gone down and reviewed it. The state's already done an initial inspection. They said it's beautiful.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
And we already got a check from finance for that, and we already, he hand-delivered that Monday, I believe. He
The right
hand-delivered
checks,
it.
too.
Thank you, chief.
That's great.
Okay, so everybody's familiar with these. Any questions? I know, Tom, you weren't here, but this is what we went through with the select board and whittled down to these capital, if you have any questions. Okay.
Yeah, looks like we got the two cruisers. And I know I think we had talked about one, but. looks
Yeah,
like
we were in a cycle. We did one last year, I think, if I recall, and
We did one out of, we did one kind of out of the operating budget because there was some additional funds in there because one of the other vehicles was having issues, so we're just looking to get back on
On the
track
cycle.
if funding's available.
Yep. Good.
Go through those things like water.
any other questions?
It's just a suggestion. I know a few years ago, we tried to get away from using the term free cash and kind of used undesignated fund balance.
I was wondering why we do that when every other city in town uses the word free cash.
Okay.
Doesn't sound good when you
It's-
say
yeah, I
free
know.
cash. It
It's-
sounds like, hey, that's money we could use for something else. Why are we giving it away?
Yeah, I know it more so, it
Nothing's
drives the
free.
public crazy,
Yeah.
for sure, because you see nothing's free, right? Free cash, what do you mean? But that is actually how it's in this, everything I've read on the state as well, policy, it's,
Yeah.
They used-
No, that's. the
Yeah,
term.
it was interesting to me, because I'm like, you guys are actually using the accounting terminologies, undesignated fund balance. Everybody else just says free cash.
yeah.
Right.
Well, this one, we started switching things back, just so,
Free cash.
because everyone's asking, what's undesignated? Oh, well, it's free cash, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
It means the same thing. I think it's.
It does.
We're
It
gonna-
does, but I
Kinda
think it
looks better.
implies free
Yeah.
cash, like, oh, maybe we could do something else
we
with
got,
that free
we got
cash.
this from the
I
state.
forget
Yeah, right, see?
what caused us to switch it back years ago, but it was
We'll probably end up
some
switching it
pushback
back.
on using the
Probably
term
Jerry
free
Del
cash.
Piore or something had a comment there.
Okay.
I snipped it out. Yeah.
That's just, that's up to you, the other finance directors.
No, I appreciate it, Steve, because sometimes people will question or may get confused, and then,
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 9.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that, Article 9? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Appreciate what you do, chiefs. Hang around. How long do we have you for, do we know?
The selectmen extended my time last night. I'll be here through the 25th of April and maybe longer,
Okay. So a little
but no less
transition.
than the 25th of April.
We're gonna get through brush fire season, and
Well, and if you didn't see the meeting last night, the new chief was appointed.
They finalized his contract, they signed the contract, and he'll be here on the 25th.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you. All right. Article 10,
is the Shaker Lane School feasibility study.
is that on this? We gotta vote that?
No, okay.
No, we don't vote that article.
Which one?
We'll vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds. in
$100
amount-
grand, we've done about.
It's not stated here that.
It doesn't tell you, so I put below it, this allows the town to transfer the 700,000.
Got it,
And I'll
got it.
put on designated
We need
account.
to update this bottom part here. It says the school committee and select board, so we need finance committee in there too.
Oh, right.
On the
Good call.
bottom.
No, that's true.
That's why I saw that.
So in the
I was like,
warrant
oh,
itself,
yes,
we need,
The warrant needs to be updated.
because it's definitely
Finance article.
a finance
Yeah.
article.
We're not on there. That's why I didn't think, we were like, wait a minute.
So just on Article 10, just add FinCom or Finance Committee, School Committee, and Select Board. All right. Everyone knows how much I love feasibility studies, but
With you.
What do you do with all that?
I mean, this is kind of a shot across
not
the,
very feasible, let me tell you.
it's a shot across the
They go
bow,
into
telling you
that
that there's gonna be a
Exactly.
major expense coming down the turnpike here. It
Yeah.
really is. It's a warning shot.
And the 700,000 came from MSBA. That's what they suggested.
That came from the schools.
That came from the schools.
They originally said 750, and then brought down to 700.
Yeah, this number, I mean, yeah, it looks pretty firm, but, yeah, well, there's no discussion to be had besides, wow, that's a big number, right? But there, I mean, there's a lot more to it, I'm sure, that looking at other schools, to do it, maybe wings on other schools on Russell Street as opposed to building a whole new school there, or wings on Shaker and revitalize, who knows, there's a lot of things that have to be discussed, so, but,
We're gonna have an influx of a lot of people coming into town, and there's gotta be more kids in the school system, so, I mean, they're gonna need it, so.
all right, so,
Make a motion to recommend the article.
Second? Article 10, right?
Yeah,
yes, Article 10.
I should have been more
That's the
specific.
first, right?
Article 10. Which recommend all the articles.
So, one of the things, as we, you know this, once you move forward with MSBA, the whole building committee piece of it changes. And you need to make sure that there's a finance team representative on that committee. You or Sean, whichever.
Just sounds like more work for you guys.
Well, you know,
Thanks, Steve. That wasn't in the job description.
and I
Motion
think-
to
I
add
think
another 2
by-
hours to every day?
I think they require it, but you want to make sure that you're not omitted in any way.
Or your representative. All right, so it's been moved and seconded, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, thank you. Article 11,
Is for the water main project.
water
Want to
main.
borrow $2 million for the purpose of funding new water main infrastructure at King Street, Great Road, Stevens Street, Russell Street, Warren Street, Whitcomb Ave, Taylor Street, for the Town of Littleton Water Department.
It's a lot of ripped up roads.
So this is what they're using their retained earnings for in '24. So they build it up, don't take anything out in '23, build it up for '24, and they're paying this off.
I would think so.
That's what this is saying.
And they've got, the smart part here is that they're doing it in conjunction with the sewer, so the roads are
Yeah.
You pay once, yeah.
paved once, which I
Yeah.
like that. That's a smart
Yeah.
move.
And these are all the oldest ones, they said, that give them lots of problems, so
Makes sense. Yeah, we talked about that at
they
our
did
last
wean
meeting.
out some to get it down to this.
I make a motion to recommend Article 11.
Second.
So moved and seconded, any further discussion on Article 11? Right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Article 12.
Big article,
Big one. This one.
the senior center. There's a lot of moving pieces. So it lets the select board acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain 31 Shattuck Street. And,
Yeah, friendly eminent domain.
yeah, friendly eminent.
Gotta make sure we get into the habit of that.
Yes, friendly eminent domain, and it authorizes the select board on behalf of town to sell or otherwise dispose of all or part of that property located at 31 Shattuck Street. And a part of the property located at 37, assessors map puts all of the information. Then transfers $700,000 from free cash for the acquisition of 31 Shattuck Street, and transfers $1,355,651 to the Senior Center Stabilization Fund. And it transfers from the Stabilization Fund 816,955 for the Senior Center. It amends the June 12, 21 annual town meeting Article 10, instead of borrowing 1 million to borrow 1.5 million. And then they added last night number 7, which is to allow the treasurer to borrow not to exceed $10 million, so putting a $10 million cap on the construction. And the reason they did that is because interest rates are going to be getting hiked up, and they don't want the treasurer to have to wait for a special town meeting if he can borrow or needs to borrow. It gives him that flexibility to borrow when he needs to.
Yeah, I mean, that will be 6 hikes from now if we wait till November, probably.
I actually like the approach here versus doing let's do the design and then come back at special and, another, it's like nickel and dime in a way, and this is just all at once. It's
Yeah,
a
but
much
what-
better approach.
So, one thing about this is it literally wasn't planned. I mean, a month ago, not even a month ago, 2 weeks ago, there wasn't this article was not going to happen. It was going to be pushed till fall or next year. So this discussion obviously took place. I met with Select Board Member Glavy outside, actually, our office was in the hallway. We ran into him, and we're kind of kicking this around. We were talking 15 million, but I think where we have, if everything gets voted through, we have over 5 million now being put into a stabilization to help pay this down. This 10 million, what we're trying to do, that's the borrow. We want to get under 10 million, and there's many reasons why you don't want to go over 10 million on a borrowing, or
So
inside.
is that above and beyond the 5 million?
No, yes, this project,
So this is a $15 million project?
very easily. Wow. Very easily.
Plus the million in opera funds, you're talking 60.
Yeah.
Right, so we have to, that's why this is, I'm not going to say this is a conservative number. This is being done more so to get this better rate. We may be coming back to this a few years down the road and saying we need another, whatever, hopefully not, hopefully we can really, if hold this number, and over the next 2 or 3 years, when this project is finally at the last phases of being done, we can keep kicking money over into that stabilization to keep knocking it down. I mean, that would be the plan. We're doing it now. We did it last year. We threw in some money. And obviously, through town vote a few years back, we threw in the 3 million, so. It's not ideal, but it's not an ideal climate to build, period. So I just think, if you were to look at, just move the interest rate up 0.5% and look how crazy it gets, right? So this is something we really, I think personally, it makes sense to do now. But that being said, it's not a slam dunk to me. I mean, if you guys want to discuss further, I think it's,
One of the things
I
you may
guess-
want to do, Gary, is we haven't met since all this shook out.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to explain the new plans about purchasing the land and stuff, so people are
yeah, so
aware
that's,
before.
because that's
town
public. It
meeting.
wasn't, I mean, it was, obviously, the select board had that, when you're talking, working with a seller, I'm over here, in the word eminent domain, there's a lot of conversations that have to take place for that to happen. So that came out of executive session now, and it's a little bit more public knowledge, obviously. But this hillside is the last thing most people have heard about. We were putting it on the hill. LLB came back with some numbers and construction costs, and It was pretty crazy. We had initially were trying to budget for, similar to the library, I think $650 a square foot.
Yep.
Yeah. And this thing was creeping up to 900, 950 a square foot. So you're going to have a building over here that is not as large as that library, believe it or not.
But more expensive.
Oh, it's going to be a lot more expensive. And how do you get the average taxpayer even to
Yeah.
look at that and say, oh, yeah, I'm all for it, So I think this is probably, when that happened, the skies opened up and that property next door came up for sale. I know the town administrator in Saldy jumped on some conversations with that, with the owner and the realtor that was involved. So the town is going to purchase that property right next to the tennis courts. Well, not purchase, take it by eminent domain, so we didn't get into a bidding war. And it's a friendly eminent domain, meaning that the seller approved or was very comfortable with the sale and the price of the property that we were going to be doing it for. So, and that's what that 700,000 figure is. The town will take it, rezone it because it's already a regular zone anyway. Push the property line right up to that driveway. And any land they take from that house property, they will add to the back of it because we own that land. So they're not going to lose land, but it's just going to be reshaped a little bit differently. And the town will, at that time, I'm looking at some of this, looks like they're going to resell the property to put it back up for sale. Probably, I would imagine, to a nonprofit, or it probably won't just be a normal sale. It'll be to some, in that regard, put it back up for sale. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to recoup the 700,000. That's not typically how this works. If it is going to go to a nonprofit, it might be less than that. I don't know. But the bottom line is, no matter what it is, say they sell it for 500,000 or whatever, that 200,000 is a lot less than we were going to be paying over here for a hill site. Now, we have a property up here that's a square, rectangle maybe, a square, very much better shaped for construction, for sure. So by virtue of that, you'd think it would be cheaper. We don't know yet, exactly. LLB hasn't really given numbers on what that's going to look like, but, I mean, I have to believe, I'm not a genius when it comes to architecture or building, but a 3-story or whatever on that hill has to be more expensive than a box building type over here. So hopefully this all plays out how the select board wants it to, but I think they put a lot of work into this behind the scenes, and that's why it really just kind of jumped onto the town meeting or onto a warrant article right now. So, and just to let you know that the construction, I kind of left the numbers out. It was creeping up, I believe, 18 million
Right.
plus for that hill site. So, and that's why we say over here, you're hoping we can get those numbers down, but
Still a significant amount of money.
absolutely is. But, I talking to a few people, Marilyn, even you had mentioned 15, 25 years ago, there was talk about a senior center.
We should have did it then, 'cause
I
it
know.
cost us $2 million.
But all that being said, I think, when I first came on Fincom, I know I'm talking a lot, so I'll finish and let everybody jump in. I know there was talk about doing a campus here for like $45 million or $50 million, and everyone's like, ugh. Now you kind of look at that and say, boy, it might have made more sense, right? But
Good deal, yeah.
to get everything done. So, that being said, there's a lot in this article. It'll probably be one of those that people want to talk about at town meeting. But that's kind of the quick history. Do you have anything to add?
Chuck wasn't there yesterday, so they're going to discuss it with him on Monday. They're going to do a meeting on Monday, to
Yeah.
go over this again.
Yeah, and they wanted to see kind of what we were discussing also as well, before they meet again. So, this is really our first look at it. So,
So
not,
I know that the rationale for the 10 million, because that's what you figure the debt service within the levy could really be supported. I just don't want to see us shortchange what should be in that building. You know, so now we're constrained with the 10 million plus whatever we can put in the reserves, and you build another building that's going to be out of date in a short amount of time, because we're not thinking about the future of the.
Yeah.
So I'm just worried that the 10 million's constraining us. Not that I want to spend all this money, but
Right.
to, I would hate to have to go back to town meeting and say, oops, we need another authorization because costs have gone up. That's the only thing, I mean, I would rather see this number to be, 15, and we know we're only going to spend 10. But at least you don't have to go back to town meeting.
That's happened in some other towns too, especially with, rising construction costs, and it's the worst thing in the world, because you gotta wait or have a special town meeting and say, oops,
Oops.
we.
And then you go back and you
were
get egg in
short.
your face, and
But I mean, I'm certainly not comfortable voting for 15 million within the in the levy. It's just a bewildering number to me that puts so
but
much
that's where
pressure.
management comes in and says, we're only going to spend X. But, construction cost comes out and, it comes in at 12. Well, what do? You put a hold on the project until town meeting rolls around?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I get the rationale for why it's moving so quick, right? But I'm struggling with a little bit from sitting and seeing the presentation of the site on the hill and all the detail there, right? And still having a lot of questions even in that presentation. Now, voting to recommend, a pretty sizable article without any detail, really understanding, and how that would play out at a time meeting without the design. And I mean, people are going to have, I think, struggle with
Yeah.
a big number when they're not seeing what they're getting and it really hasn't been designed or planned out yet. I mean, so
That's my kind of struggle, is I'm trying to picture the design, and obviously there's nothing there, but I feel like it would be difficult for seniors. I mean, how would parking be? That you'd be walking up the hill toward it, or you know what I mean? It's, if parking's not part of that site, it would be down here.
Yeah, I know there's going to be a presentation, obviously, at town meeting.
Do they have a,
They
vision for
do,
the-
but I think that's all kind of being worked between now and then. So you're sitting here waiting. They did talk about sharing, obviously, a lot of parking with the library space, and then there'll be a little bit of an offset in front as well for a little thing to pull in. But they seem to have an answer for the parking side. The building itself, obviously, yes, accessibility, that has to be the number one concern, right? And safety, so that I'm assuming has to be a large piece of it. I guess what the comfort level I have is not seeing the design and kind of winging this is, we were going to spend $10 million on this regardless, after now looking at the cost of everything. So if you're behind the senior center or for the senior center, then this just becomes a math problem for the Fincom. And to me, we can wait until the next budget cycle, in special or next year, when every one of us, I would think in this room, realize that interest rates are going to, I don't know, pick a number.
You're right.
So I asked our advisor today, and she had indicated, 3.5% to 4% on a 20-year at 10 mil is sort of a placeholder there until we execute the sale. But we have to plan on when we're planning out, I have to plan on the 4% plus side. I can't say, I hope we get, in a good spot. So that said, we're AAA. It's just a matter of, so we're going to get the best rates, but you just got to be cognizant of that anything over that, even going up to that 10 million, that's where it gets,
Yeah.
like, that's what you're committed to doing, and it blocks out other things.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable, and I think it definitely squeezes, when we're talking new personnel, it starts to creep into that discussion. We get it more stringent, and we know where that can lead with a growing town, with services that we're going to need, expanding services. So
Without the authorization, say this 10 million's short of what the authorization needs to
Yeah.
be. So then we're scrambling in years to come and sacrificing the capital plan to put more money towards this project, because you have to fund it. You have to build the building to what it should be.
So what are you more comfortable with? Are you more comfortable with the next 2 to 3 years really finding money to push to this project? To dig that number to 10 or below as much as we can, or bumping this number up?
I would say for a comfort level, bumping this number up, but still trying to put as much cash as we can
Yeah.
to the project. And just management to say, it's going to be 10, even though we have the authorization for 12. I mean, we built the library, we had an authorization for, 18, whatever it was. We knew we were only going to spend half of that because we're getting the money from the state.
Yeah.
We still had that authorization.
Right.
We didn't spend it.
Yeah.
Do we get that money from the state, by the way?
Still coming.
It comes
Still
in.
coming?
Yeah,
Comes
we're-
in.
One more payment, right?
Yeah.
One more installment, but we're only for half.
Are there
I just
grants or
don't want to
anything
see
that-
us,
that are available to? go
I
after
asked
for
that
this?
question too. Is there any money coming our way for it? Maybe in the next 2 years, who knows, right? Like,
But there's nothing actively that can be
No-
applied
nothing
for at
now.
this point in time.
No,
I'm not
no.
aware of anything for that.
I have two concerns. I have two big
Just two?
concerns, yeah. Well, the first one is, are we building this senior center keeping in mind of what's going on at the Common, where there could be more seniors moving into town and a need for a much bigger building than what we have?
This isn't a small building they're talking
How
about.
many square feet?
It wasn't cutting, we weren't really cutting.
oh, is it the same as this?
Yeah, it was gonna be 2 stories. So, and I said, can we put a 1-story there, and then you get rid of the elevator costs? But I think to get the square footage, I think they were talking 2 stories there, so.
Okay, so now you're gonna expect everybody to walk from the Common to the senior center, or are you gonna have enough parking to accommodate? Because it seems like it's always jammed here as it is now. Whenever we come down during the day, the parking lot's full. So,
Yeah.
we're gonna put another building in here, which is gonna attract more people, which is great, but where are they gonna park?
Yeah, I think,
You're gonna have more
well,
seniors
see, you're
next
getting
door,
into the
too.
design, I don't wanna,
I mean, Grudkowski's place is,
No, they can walk over.
these are concerned
right,
for,
but it's still more seniors moving into town, so you want to make sure that your building is,
It's gonna be,
Hold.
right, so I mean, I think if we're looking at, and again, without seeing a plan, I mean, if we're looking at a building on that spot,
you know, a lot of seniors
Is it-
moving into Littleton,
is it-
by the way. I don't, but, go ahead.
it could be.
Well, that's what
If the
that
right, if the
project
price
is,
is
right?
right, with a new senior center, that might be a magnet. It might work. And I'm not trying to say that jokingly, I'm saying that seriously. But if we're looking at a building that's gonna fit there, and let's just say it's designed for, I don't know, 10,000, a population, town with a population of 10,000 people. But in
Yeah.
10, 15 years from now, we're approaching up on 15, 20,000 people in this town. Is it gonna be big enough?
Yeah, I think, so, that you're getting into a question you would ask as a citizen, that, right?
It's a long-term thought.
Finance side of it, though, if we just stick to the finance, that doesn't particularly come up.
It does, because it could end up being 10 years down the road, we're faced with another problem, and we need a new building.
Well,
and we
you've
need to
got,
add to it.
you've got other boards, the Council on Aging, you've got the Select Board, you've got PMBC, you've got a lot of boards that are very concerned with that are going, the parking, they're gonna have to answer that at town meeting. They're gonna have to answer all of these questions that you just brought up.
But they're not being answered now, and you're asking us to make a financial recommendation on a.
Yes. On a
We don't have
project,
plan.
listen,
Let's approve $10 million plus another 6 in, funding from other sources, but a $10 million borrowing article without a plan. That seems like we're rushing that through, Gary.
well, without a plan, knowing that no matter what we do, if you're for a senior center, it's going to cost $10 million.
Well, this is gonna cost 16.
We're getting it at a better rate now. So this is the reason why it's coming in front of us now. It's because, yes, we were all planning, I'm on the COA, and our last meeting, we had already discussed this is going to be on next year. It's not gonna make it on this warrant.
It just seems like it's
It
typical.
wasn't until
push it
the
through.
money discussion came in, and the Fed came out and said 7 bumps to the interest rate this year are planned, not expected, but are planned. You're kind of like, well, how do we get around that? And this, I'm not sure the discussion, what was the mechanism that literally put this back on the warrant?
The resident, George Sanders, sent a letter.
Okay.
And then he spoke at the.
He did
select-
speak last night.
Last night,
Yeah.
because he's concerned about paying more interest with the hikes that are coming.
So, and there's a senior that, obviously for a senior center, knowing it's coming and wants to, obviously,
Hey, I'm not saying I'm not for a senior center, but what I'm saying is if we build it, it needs to be built so that it can be here for 30, 40 years and not
Might be out of date.
out of date and need updates and spend more, it just seems like we rush into these huge
So-
capital projects and we gotta vote them right away. I mean, it's,
you're concerned about that, but the Hill site, at
I wasn't
At
saying I was
18
in
million,
favor-
people
I
are gonna be
wasn't
like,
saying I was in favor of the
we've gotta cut
hillside
back a
either.
lot on that project, right? So I'm just saying that, I guess the flavor is, Steve, you brought up, if you think it's gonna be more than the 10 million plus the 5 million plus that we're putting aside, is that make more sense
So where
than?
would you rather have the flexibility?
Yeah.
In the borrowing itself, or know that you're gonna have to shortchange your capital plan in the next couple of years? And you know the things that are coming down the pike in the capital plan. You saw the list, you see the things that we didn't approve this year.
Yeah.
It's not gonna
No,
get
I
any
know.
easier.
I just,
So, and I saw the comment that Alicia put on one of the earlier slides, that they hope to direct 1.5 million annually to the senior center stabilization account. That's coming out of your free cash, right? We know that this past year has been probably the biggest free cash that you're gonna see because of what happened last year. Things are gonna trail down. So what's the capital budget gonna be for next year?
Yeah, philosophically, I mean, like we're using the stabilization funds, we're kind of building up in advance, right? I mean, it's just, the intent feels a little different when now we're going to continue to fund stabilization to, I mean, it's,
But nothing's going into capital
yeah,
stabilization. We're
well,
taking
right,
money out of
out of it,
capital
exactly,
stabilization
right,
this year.
yeah.
ultimately affect.
Money goes in and out of capital stabilization to go back to this senior center project.
Exactly,
So-
versus us borrowing enough and not impacting the cap plan, right? I mean,
Right.
again, I'm all in favor of us using stabilization and building it up for a future need, but in this case, it's like we're at this point now, right, where we should, us funding it in two different ways is just a little
You
counterintuitive,
don't want
right?
to, I guess you don't want to handcuff yourself and say, all right, it's a $17 million project, or a $16 million project, and you go in and then, you come across something always happens in construction,
I can't disagree with Steve, because that is how I used to do it too. We used to add a little bit more, even though we'd come under. We knew we were coming under. We would
And
always-
that's what manager, that's why you have an OPM, that's why you have a building committee.
I mean,
This is the number it's going to be.
well, let's discuss 12 million. I think the problem with that is, I'm coming from the point of, if you say 12 million, you're committing to $12 million in the levy.
Can we do that inside the levy?
You can, but you shouldn't. So,
No, that's, well.
You absolutely
yeah, When I
should.
say, can we do it, do we have the room to do it?
Well, you have to put it this way. If you do something like that, even with the 10 million, if you do something like that, Shaker Lane has to be an exclusion. There's no way that you could,
Well, yeah, that would happen, I mean, if
So,
it's a
right-
$60,
Has to
$70
be.
million
It's a
project.
mess.
There's no way you
and,
can
and
do
whatever else comes down the pike
You can
is that
imagine.
we're thinking of doing, has to be an exclusion. I mean, we're putting all our eggs in this basket for now,
well,
basically.
you're,
Whether it's 10 million, whether it's 12 million, whether it's
Yeah.
15 million, we're in the same boat.
So Steve, you're
Yeah.
recommending that we borrow more than the 10?
I recommend that we maybe authorize a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Authorize.
Yeah,
the-
authorize.
Not necessarily spend it,
Not
but
spend it, but
authorize
just
it, just in
because
case.
it's not an exclusion, so this is,
Yeah.
no matter what we do, this is competing against other capital and other items years to come, like everything we do, but it's just how aggressive, in our mindset, this board, whoever's on this board, really has to continue to push to as much extra money as we have to this project, because dollar for dollar, everything that goes, that creeps the other way, we've got to kick it down.
You're gonna have to, something else is gonna have to give. I mean, if we're just dumping everything into the senior center, something else has to give here.
Was another,
I mean, other capital projects.
We can say
come
that
up-
with the library. when
Whether
too,
whether
I mean.
it's debt service or whether it's free cash, it's the same thing, something has to give.
I mean, what would you, let's just play this out a little bit. So this doesn't happen right now. This article comes to us next year.
With a plan, what's that,
We'd see maybe a plan right now, right, what the project actually looked like in front of us. I don't know, does that make me feel better, what it looks like? I don't know. That's more for the seniors, the council on aging, and to work
Has
with.
there been a design?
Not yet.
I've seen a preliminary box, but it wasn't, it was so, yeah, it's gonna have to be a presentation at town meeting, because this is just 6 of us, 7 or 8
I
of us
don't
here
feel comfortable
talking about it.
voting.
What's gonna happen at town meeting, right?
Plan. I don't feel comfortable voting this without, not for this kind, you were saying, hey, it was a $500,000 or something like that, all right, but this is a big capital project, and
So-
you know, we're kind of looking at this saying, you know, it's almost like my kid coming to me and saying, I need $1 million. It's like, for what? You know, I mean, let's get specifics here so we understand.
you're also voting for design services to go from $1 million
Right.
to $1.5 million.
And we did this with the library, because we knew, remember, the library didn't do that.
I didn't, yeah, they kind of nickeled and.
And they had to go back to town meeting, because they just did design money. They forgot to say, oh, we can,
Well,
No,
the
I
article
like
was
the
written.
approach here.
Yeah, it was written.
As I said before, I like this approach where we know what we're really getting into, but it's such a big number. It's like, my
but it's not
gosh.
gonna go down.
In your,
It's
That's
not.
not the reason
Yeah.
why we prove it though, Gary. I mean, we should understand what we're buying for that 10 million. What does it look like? What's the site gonna look like? You know, give me an idea what that is. How big is the building?
so there's an amount here because you intend to borrow right away?
so that's the other thing I was just gonna kind of get into too. So, provided, you know, everything passes at town meeting, we'll have $5 million in that senior center account. That's gonna go to design, all those like feasibility pieces where we're kind of building it out. Then what we traditionally will do is ban until we have a final cost on the project so that we can permanently finance it. So while we're competing against interest rates, I can't race to beat the Fed on something. What you're doing is just, you're on paper giving the finance team time and like flexibility, but it's not something that I can rush through. Each borrowing we do takes about 2 to 3 months on the fast end of planning, selling the notes, and then so that's where it's not like, I'm gonna refinance my house, so I'll head to the bank tomorrow. It's very methodical. Yes.
It's not like Sean can go out tomorrow, or July 1st after town meeting and the fiscal year flips and borrow $10 million.
But it does get
To
looked
beat-
at a little bit
to
more
beat the
favorable
hikes.
than not having town vote on it now. I just,
So what, I mean, when do you typically borrow, like after, I mean, like, do we have to have costs before you borrow, right? I mean, is it, you know?
There's sort of 2 phases to it. So you could, with this, my only concern is that the expectation is that I go out and say, I need a $10 million bond for a project. Meanwhile, I have a balance in the senior capital account that I need to spend down first. I need to comply with the spending requirements of the bond as well. What I'd want to do is clear all the cash that we have available in that senior center account, and then the balance of that, get us whatever we need, if we have a firm final cost, I'll go out and bond it as soon as I can, which would probably be 2 to 3 months out after I have a final ticket on that. But in the meantime, I'd probably have to do a short-term note until we have that final cost locked down, so we don't have extra borrowed funds that we'd have to repurpose. So that's why the way this is kind of, I just don't want anyone to be confused about how the mechanics of this, because like Steve said, it's not, giving the flexibility is a good thing, but
When-
like to Greg's point, you have to know what you're getting and all of that, but like you need the,
Yeah,
it's not a overnight
You're not gonna
process.
beat the Fed rate.
Yeah, so-
Fed rate is
Yeah,
what-
exactly.
yeah, based
Maybe
on that,
we're-
what's the best case you think, fall? That you could go out and actually finance, if you had if everything went like clockwork, we're talking like fall, that you could
You
actually,
need a design, and then you need
Fund
to
it.
hire the construction crew, blah, 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 blah,
You have to
blah.
bid it, so
You're
the-
talking a long time.
Well, your concern though is more what, you don't know what you're
what we're
buying.
buying. Well,
So-
that's, that, but,
No.
But if you
but,
can't,
So you have the 1.5 million in design money, you have your stabilization account.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, so we'll have, let's say, 6.5 available, like, so
But
if
you
I
need a
bid.
town meeting appropriation to take the money out of
there you
stabilization to
go.
pay.
Yeah.
Do that to
Right.
start and then come back for the borrowing once you got all the ducks in a row. Maybe
In
that's
the
the
fall,
better
you
way
come
to go.
back and you say, okay, we have a design, and this is what it's gonna cost, and then at least there's some finality to it.
Right.
And maybe the $10 million fits, maybe the $12 million fits. At least we'll have a better,
especially
Perspective.
especially if the reality is you can't borrow till fall anyways, it doesn't
No,
really buy us
absolutely.
anything, right? So it's not buying us anything.
Well, you
really.
I can borrow whenever, it's
Right.
just a 2 to 3 month lead time, so we have like 2 issues out now, I have a November timeframe, I have a June one. Obviously, I can go out again, it just costs money each time we do that, but it also, I just don't want it to, I guess my big point is I just don't want to, it's not me versus the Fed in terms of speed on this thing, because
Yeah,
it's
but-
really
no,
not.
but
have
the
you
project
borrowed
is-
any of this $1 million yet for the design? How do we pay for the design so far?
I think it's an old capital article type thing, like a warrant article, nothing's come through on the capital.
So worst
side.
case, you could ban this $1.5 million,
Right,
bridges still fall,
yep.
and we have a number, and go back to town meeting in the fall. We're
You-
no better than
I think
where
you
we
are
would be.
better. You're just throwing the interest rate out. You are. I firmly
He's not
believe.
borrowing
He's not
anything
borrowing
until the
anything
fall
by fall
anyway.
anyway.
Well, that's because but what if the
There are-
project's
there
ready
are-
to go
there
before
are
town
sp-
meeting?
If he borrows now, right, say he borrows July 1st, gets 10 million in his pocket, there are spending requirements that you have to meet to make sure that the bond is still going to be tax-free to people who buy it. If you don't meet those spending requirements, bond counsel is going to say, "Psst, see ya."
So this is one of those issues where, I mean, it hasn't been an issue for, I don't know, 10-plus years probably, but with rates going up, so I'm gonna borrow at, let's say I get lucky and it's 3.5%. But when the bank, when the rates go up from the Fed, the banks will raise their rates. So if I'm sitting on money, the IRS is gonna say, well, you need to be spending it because by 3 months into the project, you just spend 15%. By 6 months, you spend
Yeah.
50, and it's, are you gonna get whacked if you don't? If they check? Yeah.
Well,
you
bond
will.
counsel
Yeah.
checks.
Yeah, so they're gonna monitor, they do it with our short-term notes too, so, but, I mean, if everything worked out, yeah, it'd be great to have that on paper, but it's just more of like, the mechanics of it aren't as fast as,
Yeah. All right.
So if it takes him 2 months to pull the trigger, right?
Yeah.
To get a borrowing going, fall town meeting, October or so, he can start planning in September, planning out when the borrowing is going to be, contingent upon town meeting saying yes. As soon as town meeting says yes, he just
So you're
Eastern Bank.
There's a couple
Union
things
Bank
you
says,
argued.
Here we go.
So
You
let's
argued
go
what it
back
looks
here.
like. You argued you don't see the building.
Hang on a sec. Here's what I suggest. We've done this before. Why don't we just wait until the town meeting floor to make our recommendation?
Well, that
Because
solves
it-
your problem, because you might get to see the presentation.
Exactly.
But that doesn't solve this problem, and this is a math problem. I'm more concerned with that than I am what the building looks like, because I have to trust the seniors and the people that are involved in that to do the right thing with it, what they want in it. So
You
that-
could say that, but
In the town, and the voters need to see what it looks like when they make a vote.
Understand.
Certainly. But from right now, this article is going to town meeting. We don't control that, right? We're just looking for a recommendation, right? So yes, we can wait till the floor. Will we have more information on what it looks like? The timeline doesn't change. This one was spun in so that design could get rolling right away, and then if in October they were ready to start spending money, they could without having to wait till the next town meeting. And we probably do have a little bit better interest rate. I have to assume they're not gonna go the other way. They're not gonna go the other way.
Yeah, but
So-
You're right, Gary, it's just more of like, it's more of like, I can't like guarantee like that it's gonna happen at a perfect time and be.
No, but it's gonna be a better time than getting this town meeting in November and then dealing with it, I don't know, in January, February next year. So, there's a couple things we have to look at. I can look for a motion to not recommend the article. I can look for a motion to recommend an article that's more. We'd have to recommend an amendment to the article.
Because Steve, that's what are you recommending?
Well,
about
if-
the-
If we're putting a number in here, I would feel more comfortable with a higher number. Not because I want to see the project cost more, just to give us some flexibility. I kind of agree with Greg, why even put a number in here until the fall town meeting? When we have something, we have the $1.5 million for design, get it designed, get the cost, go back to town meeting in the fall, this is what it's going to cost.
I mean, we can't really modify the article,
You're
right?
saying you're not
You're not-
recommending the article.
You're not going to,
This article's going to town meeting. See what I mean?
As written,
So,
right?
so we don't take a vote. I mean, I'm gonna just recommend.
We gotta we have to take a vote. Whether we do it now or right before town
Do
meeting.
it before town meeting.
The town's gonna be all over it,
Greatest-
believe me.
Greatest information. And then if there's a presentation that comes out, we have another meeting before town meeting so that we can review the presentation and make a better informed decision.
All right, so we say you see the structure in the next month before town meeting, it gets passed out to us, and we get to look at it. And maybe we get to vote at it on town meeting floor, because now we've looked at it, and we're comfortable with what it looks like. It still doesn't answer what we're dealing with.
so over the next month, are they able to come up with their rough design and rough cost estimate like they did with the slope site? If that's the case, then that would be fine. I'd like to see that number, what that number is coming out to, and then you start planning and saying, all right, this is what they say it's going to be. Between this borrowing and the money we've set aside, can we make it work? Yes, great. No, how do we get that number? Do we up the appropriation amount, or do we sacrifice capital moving forward?
Okay.
Those are the
So regardless,
two things you have to do.
we wanna wait till town meeting.
Or if there's a
right, let's-
presentation
let's
that's
say-
done.
Presentation
yeah, let's
before-
see if we can get one before, so we can
Before
have
town
this
meeting.
colored discussion.
We're gonna need it.
Versus, having a meeting on town meeting floor, we're trying to scramble to get it, and we really can't debate it, because we never debate stuff.
So this goes to print next Friday?
So just say.
We're right, or,
Yeah,
Tuesday.
just say, recommendation forthcoming. And we've done it a ton of times, Gary.
no, I know that, but I'm just saying, do we want to amend this article right now?
I don't know, I say we gotta go hit the fire.
Can I ask a question, though?
Yeah.
So if we have to spend a certain amount of money that's in the stabilization fund to get the design study and do all that. So without approving the borrowing, if that didn't get approved, if something, I don't know, whatever, that money's just gone, as opposed to now you have it and then you can continue on? Is that what you're saying, that you have to pay down, you have to spend all of that first, or?
So what I would rather spend the cash on hand from the senior center stabilization account before going to borrow, because then it reduces our.
Right, so without the borrowing authority, though, then you'd spend that money, and all that money's gone. And then if you didn't have the borrowing authority, there'd be no project.
Yeah, so that's where it's like, you have that, if you do have that authorization, then you can move forward. That said,
Yeah.
with the balance in the account, we're gonna be around 5 million after town meeting, and with how long it takes for just procurement and lining up the contractors and getting the job ready to go, it's probably going to line up with fall town meeting on an accelerated schedule. So with that, you could, we could have a better idea, but I'm not sure yet on that, because the first cut was around 18 million, but that was done, I think, around sometime in the winter time, so I'm just not sure on the status of
And
it.
that was
I think
based on
with-
the slope?
Yes, yep.
Yeah. What Jerry just said kind of just sparked something in me, is instead of putting a $10 million number in here to borrow, why don't you switch number 7 to a senior center stabilization account withdrawal for the $5 million? That way, if you have to go before fall town meeting to put something in the ground, you have the money. He's not gonna borrow. These interest rates hikes, we're stuck with them. He's not
Okay, so
gonna
you're
borrow
saying-
before then.
Right.
We're
gonna
requesting
pay
an
it
amendment to
anyway.
to amend the article really completely, because now you're saying authorize to use the capital stabilization, to pull money out of that stabilization to begin the design. Do we
Well,
add
you
and
already have
construction?
design. You
You're
have
gonna say
design
and
money.
construction.
You want to just,
Just combo it.
It should be, it should say design and
Is
construction.
the design money in addition to the 5 million, or is that, okay, so we have design money and then the 5
but
million?
there's, number 6, there's an authorization for $1.5 million.
$1.5 million.
Right.
Plus the
Design
5
for
that's in
borrowing.
this.
Plus the 5 that, yeah.
Plus the 5 we have set aside, plus the 10 here.
Plus the ARPA too.
If they do the proposed plan.
Oh, yeah, right.
So we,
That's just
All right, so
another
what-
grenade I just threw.
I know you did, so if you want to amend this article,
He's throwing grenades over here.
But I think what
Which
Steve's
makes
saying
more
is we're
sense to
paying
you
the
guys.
interest rates regardless, right? We're gonna pay the higher interest rate whether
Absolutely.
we,
It doesn't-
We're not
doesn't
gonna be
matter.
ready.
it doesn't
You're
matter,
not gonna save any time.
yeah.
I still think you will, but, okay. I still think it's maybe a quarter point, I don't know.
I think, so, I
Considering
think
it's
that's.
time,
Yeah.
I mean,
At
I think
which,
it's, yeah.
at whatever time you're doing it, he's still in the phase of doing these short-term borrowings. You're not
right, like we do with the library for
You're not
for
bonding for
3 years.
a while, and by the time you bond and you have the full costs and everything, you're gonna be past a lot of these rate hikes. If they're doing it every 2 months,
All right,
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the interest rate doesn't get set when you're doing the short-term borrowing. It's not till the final bonding, right? I mean, so that's just, yeah.
that's what you're
Yeah,
stuck with.
exactly, yeah. Okay.
so what do we need between now
And-
and
and
fall
this-
town meeting to,
To Steve's point, if the rates do go up, we'll have a better idea what that total construction cost is gonna be.
Right.
When we know, we have come fall, when everything's ready to go, and you're asking for X
Yeah.
amount of dollars, you're gonna know.
And in the fall, if you have that price locked in, you put the authorization in to borrow right then, he can go out the next day and borrow and bond that project for that full amount.
I mean,
Not quite the next day, but, close
All
to
right.
it.
Well,
have we ever,
So,
sorry.
go ahead.
Have we ever done a project this big without going, I mean, I know like typically we go through feasibility study to design to, funding the full
This
project,
is-
right? It's typically those 3 steps. Have we ever skipped that middle step before? Like, I mean, just
We have. Didn't we do that?
Just as far as like towns, I'm just saying as like far as town support, right? I mean,
we
it's
did it
typically,
for Alumni Field, I know that.
Alumni Field, we
But
did
that was a much smaller price tag.
yeah, 4 million? So we have a couple things we have to do right now, and that is, not that we have to recommend the article, we can wait for sure, later in the month, we can have that and say the Fincom, on town floor, I can say Fincom voted on April 28th to support this article. Or we'll just meet and then vote on town. What do we got to do? But the problem is, this prints Tuesday. If we're going to amend this we have to recommend an amendment to this article, we have to do that now. If we're going to just leave it, hoping we get to see something, then if you guys are all on board, it sounds like you're saying you don't want to recommend this article as written for this town meeting. You'd rather wait until the fall.
I
I mean, I don't know, I'm not speaking.
From where
for-
I'm coming
I'm-
from, I think I kind of agree with Greg, is let's wait until the architect comes back with something that we can look at with preliminary numbers like they came in
Yeah,
with
With the library.
the slope site.
Do some homework.
right? Let them do their homework. We have a joint meeting with the selectmen when that time comes, before town meeting, and we hash it out. If we have to
Agreed.
come to a consensus between the two boards and the COA board, to put an amendment to the article at town meeting, at least we're all in agreement, and we're not standing up by ourselves saying, no, we don't agree with this.
Okay, so I guess,
I'm okay as long as there's a discussion with the boards and they hear what Greg has to say, what I have to say, what you guys have to say, and everything's put on the table and we can discuss it like we did for the budget.
all right, my biggest concern is the project being delayed because of lack of, we don't have money to carry
We
the
got
project.
$5 million.
Yeah, the project will go forward.
But couldn't
At
we,
a minimum, $5 million authorization should be in there to come out of.
But if we
capital.
don't authorize more borrowing, then that 5 million, in theory, could be spent.
No,
and nothing gets
for
approved
construction,
and we
You're
don't
not
have
going to spend that on
anything.
day one before
Right.
fall town meeting.
Yeah,
You
it'll
always
take a
have fall
while.
town
It'll
meeting.
We have
take a
plenty of
while.
money,
You could-
You're just
Yeah.
bridging yourself between July 1st and fall town meeting.
then we have to create an amendment right now for this article.
No, I think we have a joint meeting with the
So we
selectmen.
just wait.
But it goes to
You can
Tuesday.
yellow sheet
they're
it.
meeting on Monday.
You can yellow sheet it.
Yeah.
That's been done before at town meeting floor. This is a yellow sheet with an
But they already
updated article.
voted the warrant, right?
No, they
Not
did this one, they were waiting for.
They're waiting, they're gonna go over it on Monday, because Chuck wasn't there to discuss.
So they're having, so maybe we need to show up Monday night to their meeting.
I think it was like a Monday morning thing, though. I thought they were like all over the board.
They were all over, yeah, they said possibly 8 AM, I can find out what time.
That's not gonna happen for me. We gotta work on it.
All right,
What would, you would go with this 10 million in the authorization, and that's that?
I would go with,
If we need to amend it.
well, you actually talked me into probably requesting more. If we're going to do it, we would do it, we would ask for more money. However, I mean, after hearing some of this conversation, believe me, I'm 100% behind the senior center. So my biggest concern is is stalling it.
I don't think that's
And
not my
For the
intention at
record,
all.
you're on the COA too here.
I am, so I have to
So
think.
you're thinking, you're wearing two caps in this room and you really need to just wear the finance cap.
Well, you're thinking construction.
I don't think we,
You're asking me to make a decision on a $15 million, $16 million project that I have no plan for. I mean, we should at least be well-informed. I mean, we've been down this road before, Gary, and we've waited to do the right thing.
Then we need to vote. Not to
Then we
recommend
just,
the article.
we just,
We
we
just-
just wait.
we just wait.
We just
Yeah.
wait. What's
Maybe.
wrong? There's no harm in waiting. We've done this before.
Okay.
let's give the architects some time to come up with some plans.
All right, so I'll set up a meeting towards the end of April. Alicia, could you put on this article that Fincom vote forthcoming?
There you go.
I think that's what we normally put when we
Yeah.
can't vote on it.
Yep.
Fincom recommendation forthcoming, that's what it is. We do need a lot of discussion, and you're right, hopefully by, I don't know, late April, we get to see a design.
We did that at the
There's more of a
library.
number, but if not, we have to be prepared to vote not to recommend the article for 10 million, and I just want to make sure that there's money to keep this
I
project.
think the thing that's missing from this article, regardless of whether there's an authorization, if it's in number 7 or
to pull it out
not,
of
is to pull it out of stabilization. That's your
That's a huge
cushion.
concern.
That is your cushion. That bridges you
Yeah.
all the way to fall town meeting, when you can put an actual number down there.
Yeah.
You're not gonna spend $5 million in a month.
But that becomes a different article. It
Well,
doesn't,
I mean-
you can't even reword that article that way.
Will we even be ready to
different-
go by?
You'd have to add a
by
number
fall?
8.
Even if we had, plans.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of how construction goes in the public sector, it's a process
it's a
of design,
lot.
bid, build, and all
Yeah.
that stuff, so it's
Play
very.
out too, construction crews are like,
Not to mention the companies that are already, you can't get anyone to show up.
Oh, I mean,
Steve, we would actually get rid of number 7 completely and change it.
Well, it depends. I mean, you have the option. You could get rid of number 7, you could up number 7, You could keep number 7 and put number 8 in.
We could, or we could do an amendment on the floor, which is always,
Well, let's sit this, I mean, I guess I'll make a recommendation that we don't vote this article till we have more information, if that's what we need to do here. Till we have a presentation. I mean, we need to do this for the townspeople here. I mean, it's.
No, this is-
This is a $16 million project and we're trying to push this
regardless,
through.
it is gonna be, right?
It's gonna be a 16 million, we should at least have a proposal as to what it
But
is.
So the reason the select board, and I don't want to misquote or misrepresent them, I believe the reason why this was put in so quickly was to save money
Which,
on the borrowing.
yeah, which.
Correct.
It wasn't to cram it down people's throats, it was to save money because knowing the interest rates were going to get high. So
Understood, but it doesn't
It
sound
sounds
like
like we're
that's
not-
gonna matter.
if we're comfortable waiting till fall, or waiting till the vote.
But we
just-
can make that
But it-
decision.
I don't want to
as we
belabor
have
it,
more
we belabor
information.
just beat it enough,
Right.
but there's two things. The only, my concern now would be, there is no article out there giving us access to pull money out of the stabilization. Just in case the design money dries up in August, and now we're sitting here tapping our fingers, September, October, we've got 2 months just went by without construction, and because we have to wait for
Well,
another
At a
meeting.
minimum, shouldn't we vote that piece in now?
But there's not here.
We can't modify the article.
You'd have to modify.
We'd have to,
It's not.
We can't do an amendment or?
Well, even, some of the mechanics on this too is, I mean, technically I can go out and ban the design piece if we don't have the cash out. It's just kind of a backwards way of doing it, but we can get going on that. It's just a more of like.
all right.
it's
No,
more
absolutely.
I'll tell you what, I'll put in the work.
That's what you would have to do right now. is
Yeah,
You would have to
exactly.
ban
So I
that
don't
million and a
have
half,
the-
because there is no authorization to take money out from anywhere else.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're going out to borrow a million and a half. Yes, you're doing it now and saving some short-term interest rates, which are low and still
Yes,
relatively low,
you're looking at,
less than 1,
yeah.
right? That's the money you'll be saving. So
The
if you-
short band?
A short band for that, and that's probably the best way to handle that million and a half right
Yeah.
now, not to use your stabilization
Yeah,
account.
Yeah,
What kind of
when the
money?
rates are
Keep
that
this
low, take
until you
the
know what it
low money.
is,
How much of that's-
and then you use your stabilization account to pay off the band when the time comes.
Yeah.
You're paying short interest
Yep.
for 6 months
Yeah.
to a year on that.
20 grand is.
Because that's really the only savings we're gonna get on.
Exactly.
Unless we-
Because you're not
yeah.
gonna bond
Right.
until the project,
All right. So, Steve, I'm just,
no project, until the library came along and we had the really reduction in interest rates. We wouldn't bond a project until it was totally done.
Right.
When the library came along and interest rates bottomed,
yeah,
I did a bond
you were doing
early in the
the
thing.
short, the short
We-
bond.
We did short, and then we bonded 5 million, and then Sean came along and he issued another bond.
Yep, did, the second bond and then the ban that's getting offset by the grant, so.
Right. So we're already fully bonded on the library, whereas the original plan had us at least waiting until we got the last chunk of money in from
Okay.
the state.
All right, so let me just get
So
this,
there is
I just want to be clear.
a time,
This is a select board warrant. We were going to wait regardless. But if we're not, it doesn't sound like no matter what happens, we're going to be fully comfortable unless we see design and a number by town meeting. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to probably have to talk about voting on town floor to amend this article, removing number 7 and adding, and we're going to have to actually have that crafted already.
We can discuss that at our next
To
meeting.
add the, or just remove 7.
We don't have
Just get it ready to
We
go.
don't even need the
It's a month. We
stabilization,
gotta still got a
just
whole
remove
month.
7.
but we need to have the conversation with the selectmen. I don't think it looks good to the town for us to say something on town meeting floor and
No, well, we're going to be
In
talking all
opposition
month
to
to
the
the
selectmen,
selectmen,
yes.
but, okay, all right. Let's table this.
so whatever it is, needs to be a joint
Greg,
decision.
I think you have a
between
motion,
us.
you had a motion we
I
have
just,
to
the
address.
motion was just to, at this point, to say, Finance Committee, recommendation forthcoming.
Okay,
And
Second,
that's.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous.
Is there a consensus of which approach people want to take?
In,
I would think for this, because it was a citizen that petitioned it, you're gonna have the citizen come back up again that's gonna say, hey, why aren't you saving money
Oh,
on the
absolutely.
taxes? You know, we're gonna pay more now in interest, and they're gonna go on and on and on about that.
Well, let's,
But I think,
I
I think
think
the
we need
answer
to
is.
be ready to speak to that number, though, like we were just talking about. I mean, the short-term borrowing is probably gonna save, what, maybe 10 grand, maybe 20, maybe?
All right,
But he
But that's,
could
that's
bond.
where, before town meeting, you guys sit down with George, invite George in,
no, we're gonna
talk to
meet,
George about,
yeah,
here's how, borrowing works on construction
Yeah,
projects.
get them to understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah.
we're in an absolutely worst time frame here. Rates are gonna go up, and there's nothing that we can do that's gonna miss that right now, because we can't borrow today because there are spending requirements as far as the debt goes.
so I would ask, yeah, sure, if you can get him to visit and discuss that with him, since it is a citizens.
Yep.
And if you-
We would also invite him
Want me
to
to come in to
one
talk
of
to
our
him?
Is he
meetings.
still on the COA?
Jordan, no.
No, no.
All right,
I know George very well, so if you set something up and you'd like me to come in to meet with them too, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, no, Alicia and I have in the past on,
Right.
some things too. So it's really just the mechanics of things. I think that's where it's the hardest. I talk about it, so I don't want to keep going into it, but it's just, that's where it's tough, because I think we all want the project to happen and be as affordable as possible, but then it's
Yeah.
sort of,
well, it's the thing, it's not, whether I or anyone at this room votes against a new senior center just because you don't want to spend the money, that's separate than us as a board, finance committee members, finding the best way to spend the town's
Right,
money.
right.
We have to keep that,
I
so,
think that's what we're trying to.
right, and I,
That's exactly
and you
what
guys
we're trying to
explained,
do.
you guys made a very good case, so I just think that, tabling this, we're gonna do a Zoom, I think, probably meeting next Tuesday, but that's just gonna be for a reserve fund transfer. I will set up another meeting, as late in the month as I can get.
That'll be the Tuesday before.
Yeah, and maybe if we get information before then, we can share it, we'll just email it out.
Are they working on some designs
Yeah.
and things? Okay.
Yeah. So, let's just see.
If the selectmen meeting on Monday, whenever that time is,
Right now, they're planning for 8:30 a.m.
I mean, I could be here 8:30 a.m., so.
You're retired.
On Monday?
Yep, they're waiting to confirm it, but that's what they're thinking is 8:30.
Gary, the 26th of April is a Tuesday before.
And I can lay out the three things we came up with to.
That's funny, Anthony Ansaldi just actually texted me. He tried to call me and I didn't, obviously I'm in a meeting, but he texted and mentioned, I thought I could answer some questions that Alicia had, so we really can't do that. Since we're gonna hold another meeting, that's when, and we'll get that discussion to go forward, so. All right, well, that's robust discussion that we should have. This is a huge, huge deal, and we'll just, we'll do what's best for financing this article. If it warrants it, come our next meeting. Okay. Article 13, that's the difficult one we just,
Did we vote on Greg's thing?
yeah, we did.
Yeah, we-
So we're just tabling it until we can,
Okay, so this one's Article 13 is capital transfers. So this is for those old, I believe, capital articles that were out there that are gonna be repurposed. They're gonna be repurposed for town office space needs and improvements in the amount of $252,959.13. And then the Gog Orchard Building feasibility study in the amount of $50,000.
So, didn't we have money set aside for space needs and improvements for feasibility study for the town office? Is that different?
Well, we did.
I think there was one.
Yeah. I thought there was like,
was,
I thought
Gary.
there was like
Oh, there definitely was.
$500,000 or something.
Yeah.
there definitely was.
Half a $600,000.
It's when we were, it was spent on the DCU building, trying to figure out if that was gonna work. It was spent on Indian Hill to see if that was gonna work, and this building to see, and there were actually, I know there's actually plans in place that discussed that, so I
I
don't,
I don't think it was 500,000.
It was more like
A lot.
600,000.
Yeah.
It was that much?
Yeah,
It was a good chunk of change.
two different
so
articles.
I guess you're
I'm in
asking,
the
I
wrong
don't know what that has to do with this specific.
Was it all used?
Greg, where are you,
Was it all used?
what are you referencing on here?
Because they want to use it for space needs and
Because they want to
improvements.
use it for space needs. On capital.
Oh.
So again, that's fine, and I'm good with moving it to space needs, because it's gonna cost for improvements to next door and this building. Where's the plan, though? What are we doing? Right?
But was that happen, that 600,000 all used? Do we know?
I think a lot of it was.
It's not here, buddy.
Do you know when the article was?
That was a while ago, wasn't
It
it?
It was
was.
the first time Anthony was
Right, he
here,
was-
so it
Okay,
was
so,
4 or 5 years, 4 years ago.
Okay.
So what's your concern?
No, I was just thinking maybe there was some money left over and it
Yeah.
could be
Yeah, we could just-
earmarked, but I
yeah.
guess it got gobbled up.
All right, if that's the only concern, any further discussion?
Is there any way to know that, for sure?
Do you want me to check into that, Greg?
We can
It would be helpful to know, where that money went. I mean, that's a lot of money to look at a couple of buildings and,
I don't know.
There was 2 separate architectural firms that came in to look at these things.
I guess maybe not. I mean, the billable hours can be billed pretty quick. But it'd just be good to know. I mean,
No, because if there was something, it would still pull it in when we did the conversion.
unless they max.
Greg, you want to hold, you can recommend if you want.
I'm okay with recommending. I just
Yeah.
would like to know what happened to that other
Right.
money. I mean, I don't have an issue with
That's a separate
what's
issue.
going
We
in. It's a
can talk
separate
about it.
issue. It's outside of this article.
I make a motion to recommend, if the FinCom recommends approval of Article 13.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to 14.
We already had that presentation. I'll make a motion to recommend Article 14.
Second.
Any discussion left on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. On to Article 15.
Is for LCTV's budget,
Yep.
to appropriate 385,601 from the receipts reserved for appropriation for PEG access cable. Their current balance is 391,608, and they'd like to use 222,516 for salaries and 78,477 for employee retirement benefits, 84,608 for operating expenses.
This is an annual article.
Yeah, we got to be careful. These numbers are probably going to continue to go down, right? Based on
Correct.
people cutting the cable,
You got it.
So this is probably going to come back in another form somewhere down the road where it's going to have to come out of the budget. So, I mean, we're good for this year, but
We're hanging on.
just keep kicking the can. I'll make a motion to recommend approval for this Article 15.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 16,
Is a 1.5% increase to the salary schedules in fiscal year '23 compensation grade.
Is that enough?
It's in line with what the unions have.
yeah, they're trying to keep it, it's typically what we do.
See all
Sean,
these,
don't you say
all
anything.
these costs keep going.
I know what inflation is right now. I believe.
So are the unions.
Yeah, the unions are well aware too.
Yeah, it's a tough one too. I mean, even in public, even in private, I mean, increases aren't even coming close to
No.
keep up with inflation. I
We're
mean,
losing money.
Sean, what a title you have.
And these are union
At least
increases?
this isn't. No, this is not. I'm just saying it, so the unions are, this is in line with the unions.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're just trying to keep the town.
There's only one person watching, so you don't have to
I
worry
was
about
gonna
it.
say, that's a load.
I'll make a motion to approve Article, I'll make a motion to recommend Article 16.
second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Article 17 is, there's a fund collective bargaining agreements, there's still one union outstanding. So if we settle, we have this article.
All right.
That's one that we, recommendation forthcoming, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely for us here, yeah. can you put that recommendation forthcoming? Because if that's a zero article, then we're not even going to.
Skin's drying out on me.
Uh, 18 is use of debt exclusion.
So 18 is using 300,000 to apply to pay for excluded debt service to minimize the impact on the taxpayer.
Are we getting that back? Saying minimize the impact of the taxpayer, or does that mean they
So-
just pay less?
Pay less.
Taxpayer pays less.
I was just hoping we get something back.
They were all getting checks.
That'd be really nice. I'd vote for that in a minute.
Can you do an amount up to? I thought we had to put an exact number in the thing we're doing.
So the initial amount was like 127,000 for 23. But based on two things, our cash position and then also just with how big the hit was this year on the residential side versus the commercial, we tried to put a little bit more in there to help out a little bit, so. That was the sort of logic behind there, because it's like, if we have this free cash number, try to offset some of the burden to the taxpayers. so.
Your question is though,
So
is
you're
up
gonna-
to legal? Can we legally say up to and not lock a number?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
it.
from the
Yeah.
motion, article, I
Well,
got you,
town
okay.
council looked at all these articles.
They did look at it?
Yeah, okay.
Town council did.
I mean, I know as a committee,
Usually it's like, well,
we
it's up
kind of,
to
I don't, we
300,000,
just
here's
like
10
those numbers
bucks.
when it.
Well, yeah, no, I'm planning on 300, if that gets, approved, so it wouldn't
Okay.
be,
So
I'm
my
not
un-
doing 299,
And-
99.
So we're putting in 500,
Correct.
right? So you'll be able to sustain. So it's important just to make sure you're able to sustain that, because if you dip below, you do 300 this year, you do 200 next year,
Yeah.
tax
the-
rate goes up.
Yeah, so I think, so the logic there is, and I know this is not intuitive, but we're putting in a half mil, we're allocating 300,000 because that's a number that we think we can, maintain going forward to give a haircut to the tax bill, especially with the hikes, so. I know a lot of, why you put 500 in, then why not take it out? Well, we want to make it last so that we can
Okay.
smooth off those exclusions.
Not that uncommon, we've done this.
Oh, we've done this every year.
Yeah, so
It's just,
The money, how
you
much?
have to make sure you maintain
Yeah.
what you're putting in, because if you dip below, the tax rate goes up.
Yeah,
So you're defeating what you're trying to do.
okay.
So what they're doing is
Yep.
good, putting more in to be able to sustain it for a
Yep.
couple more years going out.
Yeah, we got about a quarter mil balance now, so that'll bring that up to where it needs to be.
Okay. Look for a motion.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends.
It's not that late.
It's been a long night.
Recommends Articles 8.
Usually we're like an hour, we're out of here. This is like the longest FinCom meeting.
I didn't want to skip dinner. So recommend Articles 18 and 19. How about that? We talked about
That's an
both,
awesome
right?
motion.
Oh, that's a good one. Ooh. Tyler, I like the way you think. I'll second that.
Can you repeat that?
All right. There's a motion, and it's been seconded to recommend Articles 18 and 19. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Articles 18 and 19 are together. Article 20.
This is on the Transportation Network Company Fund, so basically the Uber Lyft funds that the state collects and then sends to us. It allows them to expend the money,
Oh,
which
okay.
is the 2,993 and 72
Not a
cents.
lot of money.
10 cents a ride, something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the city, this number's booming.
Yeah.
But just here, when's the last time you Ubered from home? I have, but
I have.
the airport.
I Ubered from here, a few months ago, my car wouldn't start, so
Oh.
got the.
So
Okay,
10
thank you.
cents is this yours,
Here.
thank you.
You're welcome, guys. I'm just trying to help do my part.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions on what this is for, or what it's?
That's pretty straightforward.
And this was a mass general law thing, all towns get this, correct?
I gotta
Yes.
just start using
Yes, and
Uber
then I
more
report
often.
to the
Uber,
state in
Lyft,
December,
and-
yeah.
Or Lyft.
All right, looking for a motion.
So moved.
All right, it's been
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Article 21, capital stabilization. Now we're getting into our,
Yep, we're funding the 816,955 from free cash to the capital stabilization.
I'll move we approve Article 21,
Second.
Second?
it's been moved and seconded.
even though we've already taken it out in Article.
Yeah, just,
We did.
Show game more.
the key is. All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
22.
Article 22 is asking for us to do a special act for the cell tower leases. So we need special legislation if we want to get it treated back the way it was. North Reading successfully did it, but they put it in a receipts reserve for appropriation account. So if we did a stabilization, it'd be basically the same thing, so. We're trying to figure out what to do. I know that town council's reached out to DOR. I reached out to DOR. DOR is now reaching out to DOR legal. All my questions, because I provided them so much documentation that the water department has given me for them to help with where I'm supposed to put some of these funds.
All right, I'm not sure, this right now isn't a financial article, right?
This is more accounting.
It will be potentially later on, but I'm not sure. Do we?
Do we need to take action on this?
I don't, to see if the town will vote to authorize the board to petition.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not gonna.
Well, there's a motion to be made on town meeting floor, so maybe just forthcoming, another one that's forthcoming. Right?
Or just might be the board's.
Am I reading that right?
Oh, yeah, because this is the special edit,
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing financial in here, right? There's some, the transfer A sum, we don't know what it is.
It's how we account for the dollars, that's all it is.
But how can we make a recommendation without knowing what the monies are? I guess it's procedure.
Well, the petitioning special legislation, it's not money really, it's not
Right.
money, so that's why I don't think it's a finance article.
It's really the accounting of it, because right now they're making me saying I have to close it out to the general fund. And the water and sewer commissioners are saying, no, that property belongs to us, so it should go to retain, you can close out the enterprise fund. And so, we're all working together and trying to get this fixed.
I mean, if people would like to.
But you don't have answers anyway yet, right, for sure?
The only answers I have so far is if they determine it's general fund, then we're gonna come during special town meeting and ask to put it in stabilization funds, so that they can still use the funds. If it goes to the water department and close to the enterprise fund, then we'll have to do an MOU or MOA to work out how to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's when we would get more
So
involved.
forthcoming on that, or no action?
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, do you want to vote, do you want us to vote on this article?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't-
It's
I
more of
just
just
don't-
authorizing
Okay.
us to
So
get
then just
special.
remove us?
22, yeah, it just won't have FinCom on there, so
Take FinCom off of there?
that's not that uncommon, we've done that.
Yeah, we don't vote on every single article if it's not financial.
Okay, it's 23.
23 is the senior work-off program and the veterans. For senior work-off, 80,000, and veterans, 7,000.
Those numbers seem awfully low.
That's what they had before. It comes straight out of overlay, so I'm just, for me, it's kind of questioning of why we do it this way. I don't know, because usually when you have overlay, it belongs to the assessors, and I don't know why it's actually an article.
Isn't this to help reduce seniors' property tax?
Age in
I can
place.
speak a little for that, if you'd like me.
Yeah, Marilyn, well, that's why you're here tonight, too. You're on this program.
I am part of the senior tax work-off program, and you can only do 60 hours per year at the minimum wage, is what you do. I mean, I'm at Park and Rec. I finished my 60 hours in December, but I'm still there as a volunteer because I like what I'm doing and stuff. The veterans, there aren't that very many men that sign up. They
I do, I do. So
Yeah,
I-
my
I would
husband
have to
does.
abstain actually on this article, so.
Yeah,
'cause I
but
do.
my husband does too, because he painted the first floor and the third floor of the old library getting ready for people, so.
It's
And
a great
that's the same
program.
thing.
yeah.
It's still the
But it's
same, it's
capped, like-
60 hours,
Yeah.
and you don't get, and it gets taken off your taxes.
Yeah,
And I think we talked about this, I mean, potentially, with difficulty getting help, it might, if there's any way to expand this program, but I think the
Right.
state.
The state puts a cap of
caps it.
1,500.
state does.
So that's-
1,500
we're
is the
locked.
max.
isn't there another?
So there is room to move to
abasement?
1,500, but maybe that's at a later town meeting, but right now,
Yeah.
And then isn't there another fund that is used to reduce property taxes for seniors?
So there's,
yes, we will get into that, but I know, there is.
Yeah.
It's the deferment.
Oh, yeah, so there's a few options on that stuff, but there's the tax deferral program where you're paying, if you hit certain thresholds, so like if you're a senior and you want, on a fixed income that you don't want to continue paying taxes, you can defer them at 1% so that, your home will appreciate and but you still have cash on hand so you can, have a better quality of life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when the house
Sells,
You make the town whole.
got it.
at 1%.
Yeah.
Great, it's actually a great program that not that many people utilize.
Yeah, we like
This
two or
one's a
three.
good program,
this-
though.
It's almost like a reverse mortgage
Income
puts on your
request.
taxes.
Yeah, 1%.
That's not the
Instead of
because it's
12%, that's
so
a
you
good
could
deal.
big deal.
All right, we got
Julie's on.
Article 23,
I make a motion to recommend Article 23.
Second.
been moved and seconded.
Aye?
All those in favor,
I'm with Tom.
Aye.
and I will abstain.
Oh, one abstinence.
Article 24, this is our,
Schools, they
Oh,
want to do a
non-resident.
non-resident tuition revolving fund. So they can collect tuition from out-of-town residents who are attending school in the Littleton Public Schools that are not part of the school choice program.
will
Where do those monies go today? Or do we not
Yeah,
get
so I was
them?
about will you have visibility of it regardless, or is this now becoming part of?
According to the school business manager, this is something that they're doing now.
So we're allowing students from other towns outside of school choice?
It's part of school choice.
No.
Choice.
No, this
it
says
says
outside.
School
Outside
choice.
of school
Yeah,
choice.
this is different.
Not part of school choice, several times, some of the students who attend the PACE program at Littleton High School and serve postgraduate students.
That's good.
I want to believe that this might be relating also to the home down by Shell or by Mobile. They're not residents of the town, they're there foster care, like usually in transition, but they attend the
Like
schools.
the boys' home, is it?
Yeah, I think
There's a
that's
lot.
part of it, I'm sure, I believe, but
Thank goodness.
I just, that doesn't matter what it is, I just want to make sure that, so currently,
But is this going to impact,
I wish.
is this going to impact the ability to choice in more students, or no?
I would think that would be primary, right?
This has to be primary, because these are, I think this is regardless, we're going to take care of these kids if they're fostered into our town.
Right.
So, yeah.
The school choice-
Without the schools here, it's tough to,
I have more questions than I've got
All right.
answers to.
then let's,
But who's paying? Are the other towns paying, or the families paying themselves?
Yeah, this says several towns have expressed interest, so it would seem that it would be,
Other, outside of,
all right, I'm going to
Outside of
take,
Littleton,
let's
yeah.
kick
let's
this vote.
table
Yeah,
this.
that's a,
Unless you guys have solid answers on,
No, that would be,
it does, this could substantially be quite a bit of money.
Yeah, we
I
need
mean,
to
there,
get,
because there's no cap, that doesn't say like 10 students, 20, that, I mean,
Do you think you could ask the school department to just write a quick memo for our next meeting, so we
Yeah.
at least see something? Or if we're zooming, maybe Steve
Yes.
Bark can
we'll invite him.
jump in?
Mark can get us on the spot.
For article, just say, reference Article 24, we have questions.
Yeah.
And then we'll, that's just one we can vote on at town meeting. I don't think it's going to be a big,
Or if we have the answer by next week, if we're doing a quick zoomie.
yeah, it won't be in time. Yeah, it's gonna print before we meet on
And we
Tuesday.
can just,
All right, we're gonna push that one. Article 25.
We vote on that?
No, we're gonna say, Article 24 is a recommendation forthcoming.
yeah.
If we have questions.
And then do we have to vote on 25? Is that a
Oh,
Selling property.
votable?
you know, it is not. Because they can sell that land without our authority
Yeah.
or our recommendation, so. The question being, I guess, a resident might say, well, what does FinCom think about this? And that's where that's the question you ask yourself. Okay, now does it make sense as I don't know, just selling,
I think it's probably a good thing to get out from underneath that property. Being an owner of an old home.
yeah, I think we should vote on, yeah,
Why did we buy it?
yeah.
I
Let's
question
vote on,
that
let's
too.
actually recommend this article, or vote to recommend this article due to the fact that the monies are being put into the Human Resource Reserve account of the CPC, so it does affect budget, so.
Well, we need to find out about that.
Yeah.
Alicia's gonna find out about the proceeds.
So just leave it
Yes.
as, just leave it as forthcoming.
Okay, yeah, I mean.
We can, I mean, it's kind of the same, we don't have a number
We don't-
here. We probably
There's nothing
should.
for us to do.
To make
It's-
an informed decision, we should know roughly what that looks like and
Yeah.
where that's gonna go.
More of an interest, but it's not a finance.
No, it's really not, but it's still kind of something we gotta
All
look
right.
at.
The actual warrant has us make a recommendation on Article 26, so we probably don't need to do that. It's about plastic bags.
Is it?
Yeah,
Didn't
yeah.
this get
just-
shut
this
down?
is a
It's a
petition.
citizens
This is
petition,
citizens.
that's not.
Didn't Jerry do a whole presentation
Yeah,
on
this
this?
is a different group that came forward with another petition.
So Jerry will have to dust off that presentation.
Increase in costs.
Yeah,
And then the last one, we
so 27, operating budget line item transfers.
we don't have them yet, right?
Not yet, but they're forthcoming. We're gonna be discussing that up ahead.
So our recommendations forthcoming too.
That's about it.
Plus you wrote.
All right, real quick,
All right.
So we're done with the articles.
Yep.
I went over the fiscal year '22 facilities budget with the select board last night. So I wanted you to be able to see, I sent you the package, but I also wanted you to be able to see that right now we're projected in the whole 93,842.56.
that's hence why we're have a reserve fund transfer request.
Yep.
And now you can speak to the majority of this. Actually, you have it in the next article, right?
Yep,
Or the
so-
next paper.
I met with the library trustees, and in a good faith effort, they're going to give us, they're going to vote, and hopefully vote in favor, to give us $26,000 towards this deficit, as they haven't spent any funds this year, which would reduce the deficit to $67,842.56. But then we have $28,000 in anticipated spring HVAC costs. So it brings it back up to negative $95,842.56. So last night, the select board voted to recommend a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $95,842.56. The new library solar panels that are projected to save at least $500 a month or $6,000 a year. But their current bills when they were in this building for electric was in the hundreds, and the max bill I saw was $11.50. Currently, though in the last few months, it's been anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month. We just found out the other day a pipe burst down the middle in Town Hall second floor. We're not sure the cost yet, so that's gonna be hitting facilities. We just found out today the water heater at the fire department is leaking and the leaks cannot be repaired, so the preliminary estimate to replace the water heater is $18,000.
Isn't that a brand-new water heater?
It's gotta be, right?
Brand new fire department.
That's crazy.
It's a lot of showers, though, you gotta figure.
That's crazy.
Unless they kept the old water heater.
Got an axe inside of it now.
So the select board voted last night to authorize a spending freeze effective April 1st. That way I can kind of close down and make a real projection of what's available in each budget, so that they're not just spending as these things just keep occurring. I said that this is an abnormal year and astronomical things just keep occurring. And I keep finding things that are happening with this facilities budget, and so I'm very, very concerned.
So let's talk about a freeze. So I haven't lived through a freeze before. I don't know where our last freeze was. And this isn't like a red alarm or red alert type of item. I just want to make sure that the public knows it's not that. So,
It's only the general fund.
yeah, and we have some, obviously, a lot of unexpected costs, so now I guess the question is exactly, what are you doing differently when we freeze?
So then they have to go through the chief procurement officer and myself
Have one a couple years
to
ago.
ask for purchases, and then we would say yes or no if they could have the purchases.
Okay,
That way I'm able to monitor versus them just keep spending, and then I don't have enough at the end to transfer
Right,
into
okay.
this. That'd be an issue.
okay.
Yeah, we've done this before.
Yeah.
This isn't,
It's been a while.
Just a couple of years,
is it 2 or 4?
maybe 4.
What's the total number on all expenditures unexpected?
Yeah.
On the other slide?
95.
Yeah.
We were at 95, but I don't know how much the pipe is yet upstairs, and I know 18,000 for the fire department is the estimated replacement leak, so now you have 95,000 plus your 18,000 plus whatever
Yep.
that pipe that burst is. I'm not sure yet the total, and if anything else is gonna pop up.
And where are we at with our reserve fund money right now, Cal? How much?
You have over 200.
Okay, so we're gonna be running to the finish line too, which is
Is it
really
all?
weird for us. I mean, usually we have a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like someone knows we've
Okay.
got money in the bank and we're just
Sticking a knife into the water heater.
brought the
I think
water heater
someone
home.
stuck a knife in the water.
Spend that money.
Okay,
We're gonna vote that next week, right?
yeah, because I can't, it's not on the
It's not
agenda.
It's not on the agenda, so we can't vote it.
So, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
and what's in the budget for '23, are we okay? I know we bumped it up a lot,
We did.
but it's probably right where it is, right?
I'm hoping that it's gonna
It's
be okay.
544, so it's light from what we have here. What you're spending this year is light for what we've budgeted for next year.
Because I know we're gonna have a lot. It just seems like a lot of things just keep coming and coming that are unexpected with the facilities. I really hope the town gets a facilities manager to watch this stuff.
Yeah. Maybe we could get some shutters on the library, you know, keep the heat in.
It's looking at the bills and the rates and the different buildings, especially with us investing so much in
Yeah.
new buildings.
Are they
Okay.
leasing those solar panels? They're not
No.
purchasing, they're purchasing?
No, they're purchasing. They got an earmark from the state.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a huge amount, 500 a month, until you see, you know, when you saw the size of the bill, actually, the worst months.
10%.
We'll see what it looks like come, obviously, May, June, July, August, if
Well, that's where you get
the AC is as much as the.
And we've had
Sun.
discussions with the light and water departments to maybe give us a heads up the next time they
We did,
raise
we
rates?
did, and also.
Or put meters in and,
Yes, and the library trustees are also researching why it's much higher than what was projected to them. So they're doing their research on their end as well.
okay.
All right, and that will be what we vote on, so save that for next meeting. We'll do a Zoom. And anything you can get in that Zoom meeting, those little questions that maybe we get a
Yep.
couple, but the big one, obviously not. We're going to wait till a late April meeting to get obviously, the senior center questions. And any other articles we might be able to vote on by then. Okay. Thank you very much. That's a lot of work. I know you've been up now 2 nights straight with the,
Busy.
actually, they got out a lot earlier than us for the first time ever last night, 8:30, I think they were done.
Wow.
All right, there's no public member updates, anything significant that anyone has coming down the road, no?
Nothing, I can't wait.
As you starving in your stomach? All right, let's just get the minutes out of the way. So we have March 8th minutes. Did anybody,
Make a
I
motion.
know you all really looked through those minutes, but,
Skim 'em. I make a motion to
I think
approve
I
as
missed
written.
that meeting.
okay.
Yes, you
Second.
did.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I think that's all I have, besides just remember, next Tuesday night, we'll do a Zoom just to get the reserve fund transfer. I don't know what the end date is on Zoom meetings. I like them just for these little tiny things, so we don't have to all show up here just to do a reserve fund, but,
Save on gas, thank you.
right, but we'll get back, we're gonna be getting back to this type of meeting, obviously, to do the town business, but for those little ones, take advantage of it while we can, I think. That's all I have, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you, public, and thank you guys.